How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Special video today. I've done some of these like drafts before, and it's perfect off-season content. So me and two of my buddies, content creators, Mike De La Rosa of Thinking Basketball. I believe they call you an X's and O's expert over there.
Something like that. I'll take
Yeah,
that.
X's and O's expert, Mike De La Rosa, and Andrew Fenichel of, I don't know, he's just kind of independent. He does his own thing. He's his own brand. But yeah, these two guys, we are going to snake draft the current best players in the NBA. I saw someone do this with NFL players and was inspired to take that idea. We're just doing the best players right now for this season, so no injured guys, not necessarily projecting into the future. And we're just gonna kind of go and see who builds the best team. But Mike, Andrew, how are you guys doing on this fine Thursday?
Just been grinding tape all day, trying to make sure my big board's in a good spot.
Mike and I were talking about this before. I don't think I didn't do much. I prepped a little bit, but I wasn't necessarily as so. Yeah, wasn't.
We were cramming the on-off numbers 10 minutes before the podcast, but otherwise we're doing well.
It's got PvP stats on one screen, and
hey man.
Well, let's determine the order. I've just got a little random list generator, so I'm going to hit randomize. And there's the order. So Andrew, Fenny will have the first pick.
I like that.
I was 3 and 4.
What is the best pick here, given that we are snaking this? I suppose you can make it for any of them, but yeah.
I suppose you can. It kind of just depends on how you view players compared to compared to each other. But let's not waste any more time. Like, subscribe, comment on the video channel would be cool. Let's go support Mike and Fenny. I will drop their socials and YouTubes and stuff in the description below. I can't talk right now, so I'm just gonna let you host the show, Andrew, and you have the first pick. So, who's the best player in the NBA to you? I suppose that's the question that you've been given. So.
No recency bias. I think this is pretty simple. I'm going to take Nikola Jokic here and really not think twice. I still think there's a pretty sizable gap, all things considered. I don't know who Ben's got, you got on your board second. I can guess. But, yeah, happy with Jokic. I think we're winning the title already.
One question I'd have for you, though, is what did you make of some of the impact metrics that suggested Shea had sort of caught up to Jokic statistically during the regular season, at least?
I think it's obviously hard because, yeah, you can look at it both ways, right? There was all this stuff that was like Thunder with Shea on the court were better than the Nuggets, right? But then the difference was larger, but also the Thunder with Shea off the court were better than the Nuggets with Jokic off the court. So kind of thing comes down to eye test to me. I don't know.
I get that. I mean, I would have taken Jokic number 1 too still, but it was interesting how, I mean, Shea probably impact metrics wise had an edge on Jokic defensively, not just this past season, but historically. But his offensive numbers had sort of caught up with him with just like the ridiculous volume plus efficiency combo. I don't think they necessarily capture like how, the different team context, especially with how the Nuggets offense is entirely centered around Jokic. But the OKC basically wanted to space the floor and sort of create as much space for Shea driving lanes as too. But I thought that was interesting because Jokic was basically an entire football field ahead of everyone offensively in previous seasons. But it seemed like Shea sort of closed the gap a little bit this season.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'll add is I think watching Shea more in the playoffs, I think his defense to me is a little overrated, but his playmaking to me is actually underrated. I think as a passer, even though he doesn't put up 9-10 assists a game, I think the public perception is he's really just a score first guy, but like he had double-digit assist games in the finals, right? Yeah, I think it was game 4.
Yeah, his passing was definitely up and down, but he had his good moments where he was just like slicing apart defenses when he was getting his interior passes going. It was really working out for him. But yeah, my conclusion on the Jokic versus Shea thing is I also would have taken Jokic one if I had the first pick. But I think it's closer than I would have thought like a year. Well, obviously a year ago, but like I think it's closer than maybe I would have given it credit to before, maybe earlier in the season. I do think they're both insane, but I would lean Jokic just for, like kind of Mike alluded to, the way that you can construct an offense around what he does. And like, definitely Jokic doesn't have like isn't necessarily always wired as a volume scorer like Shea is. But he obviously has his moments where he can turn it on. And he just, obviously plays center, and there's different play types that go with that. But yeah, I take Jokic and feel pretty good about it. I think there's a good chance of him being the best. I mean, probably the betting favorite for me to be the best player in the world this season if I had to guess.
I think one thing also with Shea that you can talk about more depending on who gets taken next, but is that I felt like similar to other guys on his team like J-Dub, I thought Shea was sort of figuring things out as the playoffs were going on too. Like I think progressively his passing got better the more he saw double teams, and even with the Nuggets throwing the zone at him, but even against Minnesota and then the Pacers in the finals, like I think he sort of started to understand the tendencies and where guys were going to be open depending on where they were sending the help.
That's a good point. It felt like every series he would struggle. Was it? I forget, but like in the middle of the series, he would have one strangely underperforming game, but then by a game 6 or 7, I mean, every single time Shea was, doing his thing. So,
or even I think in the beginning of the finals, I think it was game 1, he was just pressing too much. I think his efficiency was down, and he was just shooting a lot in game 1. I think he was just playing a little tight, but I think slowly you saw like games 2, 3, 4, 5, he sort of warmed up.
For sure. And that's what like the great players do, right? You're going to play the best defenses and the best coaches and the best schemes in the playoffs. And I think it's understandable for even the greatest players of all time to struggle occasionally, but like the ones like Jokic, the ones like Shea will adapt and improve. I'm taking Shea at second. I considered someone else who Mike may take at third, but
wow, I like it.
I did take Shea at 7.
How close were you to considering taking that next guy?
I was within the same tier, so quite close, I'd say. I'll just say my next guy is Giannis. I figured might be yours as well. But TBD. Yeah, I think Shea versus... We'll see. Maybe you're going to pull out a Darius Garland out of your bag.
Mike, I'll trade you the 4th or the 6th pick and the for your
you want who do you the 4th? I feel like 4 through I don't know. After I feel like top 3 is sort of a tier on its own, and then 4 through I don't even know where, like 8 or something could probably be like a number of guys that have a case. So I think that'll be interesting.
But yeah, I'm taking Shea over Giannis, and even though I would have taken Jokic over Shea, I think you can make a reasonable. I probably wouldn't take Giannis first, but like if you really wanted to make a case for it, I could understand it, even if I probably wouldn't go that direction. But yeah, I think Shea is he's so stable, and his consistency and floor, I think, adds so much and allows you to just like, the Thunder. I feel like I saw Thunder fans, like I see Thunder fans, people being like the Thunder won the title on like a C+ playoff run by like their standard or how they could play, which probably isn't totally true, just because I think you have to get above that level to win. But yeah, there were a lot of moments where they could have lost games, like they put in 2 game 7s. But I think having the floor raising ability of a guy like Shea, and Giannis, I think, is definitely a floor raiser at this point to an extent. Like the stuff that he did on offense against the Pacers was just truly, truly absurd. And I think he's a pretty significantly better offensive player than he was like 2, 3, 4 years ago when he was even like in some of his MVP seasons. Like he's not as impactful of a defensive player as he was at that point, just because of some athletic and like motor declines. And obviously he carries an enormous offensive load, which does kind of, not necessarily excuse the defense, but it definitely explains it to some. But yeah, I mean, he was at 33 points per game, 15 rebounds, 6.6 assists on +7 relative true shooting against the Pacers. Like, that's kind of insane. And his playoff career generally is, 30 plus per game on above average true shooting. And like, he's a better handler now. He's a better shooter now, but I still think I'd rather Shea as like my consummate initiator, and because he's younger and he's going to keep getting better, but I'm not really factoring that in much right now. So.
Yeah, I think you basically made the case for my pick at number 3, which is Giannis. I think there's basically there isn't a strong enough argument for anyone else. During the regular season, he was at like 33 points per game on +5 relative true shooting, and he was even better during the playoffs. And yeah, I would agree though that I thought his defense, you could argue even against the Pacers, was worse. And during the regular season, I think he sort of coasts on a reputation.
I think he had a poor defensive series with the Pacers. It wasn't all his fault, but like
during the regular season too, I think his defense is pretty overrated at this point.
For sure.
But like overall, I think the fact that he's still able to put up that volume on that efficiency, considering how weak his supporting cast has gotten, also is sort of a notch in his belt. There is probably something to be said with like his play style and the way you have to construct the team around him in order to sort of maximize him.
Because he's not this versatile defensive weapon anymore.
And I just think like he wants to play 5 out and spread the floor and doesn't want to play as much pick and roll or play as a roller. And I think that probably limits you with how you can load up in his driving gaps during the playoffs. And he's gotten a lot better as a passer. Like some of the passes he even made starting in like 2021 during that finals run up to now, compared to where he was like when he was playing the Raptors in the playoffs in what was that, 2018 or 19. I think he's improved a ton there, but I still think he can't, some of the easy transition points or easy reads he can make during the regular season just aren't really there. And that's why I'm a little lower on him as a playoff performer, even though his numbers are still really good.
He's very much like a matchup check in the playoffs to me.
Yeah.
Where if you're playing against a team like the Pacers that just like doesn't have any thick lower body, core strength, tall, wings or forwards who can really bump and like bother Giannis, like Pascal is awesome, but there's only so much that even a guy like by NBA standards, who's a very athletic, tall, long wing, can only do so much with Giannis. So I think once you get up to those, better teams who have better defensive players, it's tougher for him, but like we're still talking about a top 3 player in the world here. Like I don't think it's
and it's like realistically, like how many defenders are even out there? Like I think
not very many. I think
you basically can't defend him one-on-one. Just like straight up, like
right. You need 2 or 3 of those guys pretty much, and most teams that aren't good playoff teams have 1, maybe 2.
And I think that also speaks to like, how they've sort of trended in a downward direction, just like playoff success wise as a team, is because he's still maintaining his scoring and whatever his load, but they're just not winning, partly just because of the supporting cast just is not there.
And he just also has had annoying injuries in the playoffs as of late too, which is, again, it's like they just don't have the team to kind of, maybe in 2021 you can survive a Giannis injury for a series. In 2025,
yeah.
No. Can you guys name one other player on the Bucks you trust in a playoff series?
Like today?
I'm talking this season, today.
I mean, there are players on the team who, like, if you told me that's your like 8th, 9th guy, like I feel good about AJ Green on the floor.
I was gonna say AJ Green
in most playoff series.
But like
offensively, I still trust Miles generally, but defensively.
I don't even know if I was counting Miles, but yeah, I would take Miles for sure.
Yeah,
but
I'd take Miles.
If we were taking the team from last season, like Lopez got played off the floor at times. I thought that was an especially bad matchup against the Pacers because they just spread the floor so much and he can't really move in space.
Right, and the Bucks were just like so willing to switch him out there. We're like, all right, good luck. Let's see what happens. And
like that guard rotation is straight out of like a nightmare AAU 9 a.m. game that no one wants to watch. Like, I don't know. Like, I absolutely despise this entire Bucks roster. They were my least favorite team to watch last year as a Giannis fan, just disgusting basketball to me, and I think it's going to be even worse this year. I mean, Cole Anthony hoops on a Tuesday, you know what I'm saying? Like Ryan Rollins and Kyle Kuzma putting up 25 shots a game. I don't know.
Honestly,
it's crazy. It is crazy.
I might nominate them as having the most disappointing trade, just as a franchise, sending off franchise legend Chris Middleton for Kyle Kuzma. Like, I get that maybe you thought he still had a little 2020 in him, but man, he hasn't Kuzma hadn't played serious basketball in 3 or 4 years and just was not
2020
ready.
Kuzma got to play with LeBron. So, I mean, I guess Giannis, but, just in terms of better guys who set up guys.
Kuzma had like an 0-for-12 stretch going in that Pacers series, and then he got like
my favorite
one
player.
field goal as charity or something like that. That was
every time he checked it, I'm like, exhale. But anyways, Mike, you have the turn. Because I wrote this backwards, I'm gonna have to fix this.
This is maybe the most difficult pick for me, probably in the entire draft. I don't know. I got to think about this a little more.
If Jason Tatum was healthy, is he the pick for you here?
Oh man, it's so tough.
Okay,
part
so
of me.
Okay.
No, he's definitely in the conversation, I would say.
Sure.
But I mean, I think there's a few ball dominant guys that are in the mix for sure. There's also maybe a rogue Wemby shout when he's healthy, but I don't think I'm there yet with him. I still might go Steph Curry, honestly.
Wow.
Great.
I just think like I don't think he has an argument to be one of the top 3 spots at this point. And his numbers probably may not, fully match someone like Brunson or Luka. But I don't know. I'm not feeling that. This season, going into next season, I'm feeling like Luka's going to have more of a comeback season. I think he'll come back. He'll come into training camp and into the season in better shape. He's going to play in Eurobasket. Hopefully that goes well. But I was not. His performance against the Wolves, and talking about Luka, does not give me that much confidence. And I still don't think they have the team fully constructed around him. But I think that, shows to me that Luka needs kind of more of a specific team context in order to thrive. And maybe you could argue that for Steph too. I think Steph versus Brunson is probably more interesting. Just because Brunson, I think he had like the highest load of any player during the entire playoffs. He was like, I think he was like 30 points per 75 on like +1 true shooting, which is good. Or maybe that was the regular season, but
Brunson?
Yeah, Brunson during the playoffs, I think he was 30.
Brunson
30
was 29.4 points on 1.2. So it's pretty, still pretty
basically.
Good.
And I think Steph's numbers were lower. I mean, he had a smaller sample because he got injured. But I still think, even you look at how the Rockets decided to defend him playing basically a matchup zone in order to take away, the few able scoring or creation guys they even had. And I just think generally the Steph Curry effect is still very real, and that's really kind of hard to quantify. The one thing that I think people could say, is that his regular season on-off numbers, scoring numbers are not as impressive as they used to be. But I think when Jimmy was on the court, when you have him plus Jimmy plus Draymond, that is still an incredibly difficult sort of problem to solve. Sure. And I think if we're talking about really, really high level, and especially in the playoffs, I still just trust Steph over some of these guys. And I think, Brunson, while yes, he was still able to maintain decent enough efficiency and scoring volume, I think Curry could take more shots theoretically. I remember years ago, Dave Dufour, who works at The Athletic, was I think the best shot for the Warriors would literally be Steph Curry shooting the ball 60 times a game. And I don't fully disagree with that. So I think he could, sometimes he's a little more selective and wants to just sort of play within the flow of the offense and not hunt shots as much. But I don't know. I would still probably take him. And I think I would actually I would take his defense over Brunson as well. I think Brunson's a sneakily weak defender.
Extremely low bar, but I agree.
Yeah, and I think this sort of strength, cardio, like the core strength Curry has these days, like there were some points where he just like blanketed Jalen Green or like whatever. He could just sort of get into the lane, and one of the most underrated rim finishers probably of the 21st century, I would say. So that's my case for Steph Curry.
I find it so interesting.
Yeah,
for sure. I think it's a great pick. The only thing quickly I'll say, so interesting to me how Steph, KD, and LeBron have all aged specifically athletically in their games in very different ways. And at different points over the last 24 months, I could have made the case for any of those three guys. But I agree with you. After this last playoff run, I'm pretty confident Steph is my top pick among those three.
I agree with that.
I would agree with that too.
I personally don't think I can get to Steph over Luka. I certainly understand the case. I do think at this point, while it's definitely true that Steph, I think, will always be easier to build high-level teams around just because of how he plays, I do think we're coming to a point with his like on-ball creation where he's more reliant on other creators in the system. Like you mentioned the Jimmy Butler pairing, where I think these days it's like you kind of need that for Steph to get the most out of a Warriors offense, where Steph can still go nuclear at times, but we also see games like I think it was like the right before the playoffs, that Rockets game where they completely took him out. And the Warriors couldn't do much. And of course, it's more important what he did to them in the playoffs. We saw that he's still an incredible player, but I just think Luka, well, definitely you do need to be more intentional about the way you build around him. It's like we've seen the ceiling that you can get to with a guy like that. And like even with his struggles in the playoffs last year against Minnesota, like he's still at 30 points per game on plus 3.4 relative true shooting. Like he's still incredibly good, even if by his extremely lofty standards, maybe not necessarily what we expect. But I am really interested to see how this Lakers team handles the issues that Luka and the Lakers like ran into. Like obviously there was some level of just like he looked lethargic at times, and the physicality from the Wolves was clearly bothering him.
Maybe the calf injury or whatever he was just like didn't really have the same burst.
Stuff where stuff where I think you can reasonably expect that to get better. But like, the Wolves in game 4, they were hard trapping Luka, and he has to pass to Jackson Hayes as an outlet, and then Jackson Hayes doesn't play anymore. And then they can just gap up and be physical in those moments. But I do think by absolutely not a world beater, but like Ayton will be better. Like not like a super enthusing addition. Like I would have wished for a guy who's better at setting screens at the very least,
and like enjoys basketball more. He's Ayton's got a little Nurkic in him.
Sure, but like
I agree.
Neutral team situation. I think you can find players who fit Luka ball, even if it's not like the highest level version of it. Whereas Steph, I think you need like more high level players, even if there's like more ways it can work, if that makes sense. Ultimately, I just think Luka, like,
that's fair. I think you're right. You're right that I think Steph needs more guys that allow him to like reset his dribble and sort of set up the cuts off ball, because he can't create off the dribble as easily as he used to, probably.
Yeah, he just like doesn't have the same kind of juice, which is like fine, expected.
Yeah, it just is. But I think my thing though, in terms of like why I was a little more hesitant for Luka, was just because I thought his defense was really bad against the Wolves.
Yeah,
and it was less of the offensive thing for me, and I just thought like they hunted him. And even in the 2024 finals, like I thought the Celtics were hunting him in certain games like pretty relentlessly. I don't know, but
no, I remember. In that game, even in that same game 4, like they'd have Luka chase off some like Nasrid screens, and he's just like not equipped to do that. It is kind of like almost like even like a peak versus consistency thing with Luka and Steph to me at this point. It's like Steph, like you mentioned, with just like the incredible cardio shape and core strength, and like the way he's able to maintain himself at this age. Like obviously Steph could get hurt, so there's with his age,
and did right,
and did right. He has an injury history, but assuming he's playing, I think you can bank on more consistency than what you can get with Luka, even though like I trust his playoff track record enough to bet on it, continuing to improve. And obviously just like it's his first time in a new situation his whole career. Like his last time he had to acclimate to a new situation like this was when he was in Madrid. So I'll give him some benefit of the doubt, but I think it's an interesting conversation, and I'm curious to see who Fenny takes next, because I was pretty set in on who I was going to take at 5, but that did not end up happening.
I thought Steph was going to fall to me here, so that's sort of what I was hoping for. Yeah, this is a fascinating spot. I have I have 4 guys I'm deciding between. Really, I have 3 guys I'm deciding between for pick 7. Pick 6, I'll go ahead and lock in Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
I don't think this is too early. I don't think this is a projection. I think he's that good right now.
I would have taken him at 5 if Luka went 4.
Defensively, I don't really need to hype this guy up much. I think he's probably the most impactful defender in the NBA already, especially, factoring in the value of a rim protector. He's had these weird slow starts to both seasons, but once he's sort of gotten in a groove each of the last 2 years, offensively, he's been better. My one concern would just be I don't really like this Spurs roster construction, especially in the context of maximizing Wemby offensively. But
I don't like it either. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So
for sure.
If this was fantasy basketball and we're going based off stats, making the greatest pick, but I think in a vacuum, yeah, I think Wemby is a top 6 player in the league, and love the value here.
I think the gap between him and the next best defensive player in the league is pretty big, honestly. Maybe Mobley is pretty close-ish, maybe peak Draymond on his day, but I still think the similar to Curry on offense, there is a Wemby effect on defense, and just it's you could look at his steal and block numbers or whatever, but just the amount of havoc he can create just by his mere presence is kind of unrivaled at this point.
It's insane. He has the all-time Hall of Fame footsteps badge. I think of Gobert as the guy in the league who does this the best, but I think that's Wemby now. It is really insane watching that team and just seeing how his presence impacts. And it really is in any single way you want. You watch him play for 5 minutes and you probably figure it out. You look at literally any defensive metric. He is towards the top of the league in EPM, in Darko, in REPM, even if you go out to 2 years. His defense the Spurs defense is 10 points better with him on the floor. He's up there with the leaders in deflections as a center. It's insane. It really is bonkers, the kind of impact he has. But I think he's a star level offensive player already, or at least getting there. And I agree with you, Penny, that I feel the way the Spurs are set up, it's very much we can build this way because we have Wemby saving everyone versus
I still love him ISO as an ISO scorer, shot connection. He still is, I think, a ways to go there.
Yeah, no, but I think just he makes There's so much stuff you can do as a dribble handoff hub, and obviously
threat. Yeah.
What?
That's really,
oh yeah,
lob as a lob threat.
Right.
He's the greatest lob threat ever, right?
I don't think
close. Peak AD.
AD is definitely up there. Just because AD probably is just stronger as a roller in terms of maybe, but Wemby is probably the widest catch radius for sure.
Yeah, Ralph Sampson.
Yeah,
dude. AD on the Pelicans though could he had an insane catch radius too.
I think it's probably
crazy. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Wemby. I think he's already approaching the best passing big men in the league. He's definitely not. Nobody will ever be Jokic level, but I think he's getting up there with anyone else who can say he's definitely more risk prone, and he makes more mistakes than a lot of those guys. He's a 20-year-old player. That's not necessarily something that's surprising. And he has a very significant offensive load, and his team lets him try stuff and make high leverage plays. And he has some of the most ridiculous wraparound passes against double teams. He'll like tap passes in the high low. It's like Charles Bassey to go finish. I'm thrilled about the Luke Cornett signing. I think that's going to be huge.
And
in terms of
Kelly Olynyk, even nice little pickup.
Yeah.
There too.
The Spurs as a whole, not so great for Wemby, but I do think their front, like the front court pieces they've gotten, like, yeah, give me Cornette, who is one of like the best per minute interior defenders, like screeners, finishers in the league, and then Olynyk, skilled, can shoot. It's like, but yeah, Wemby, I mean, he's awesome. I have no real issues with this, and
I still don't love his chemistry with Fox. I don't know. I was not.
Minutes.
I know I was not super convinced by those 100 minutes, and Fox
I wasn't either. But
I one thing I will say that I liked about how Wemby developed his offensive game this season was just becoming more of a pick and pop threat. I think that was just easy. Like, his form always looked solid. It seemed like he had really good touch on those shots, and just that helps unlock the driving lanes for other guys too. I think the more he can up his volume from deep. People
are like, oh, the shooting, oh, he takes so many threes, but like, if you have a 7-footer who's 35% on 8.8 threes per game, like, there's more than that. There's more value to be had there than just like I feel like we mentioned like Draymond. Like, some of the best part of Draymond is like you have this demon rim protecting force, but then like on his day, he's spacing the floor and has perimeter skills, and you can build cool lineups around him because your center is stretching the defense. Wemby obviously does it in a different way, but like, it is crazy how like he will spot up at 27 feet and defenders close out hard to him, and like he can beat them off the dribble that way because he's like you said, he's not a great ISO threat. Like,
would you rather? I'd rather him take that shot, like,
for sure,
a pick and pop three, than try to post up like Dylan Brooks and take that, like, whatever 17.
He's pretty good at the deep catch and shoots. He's not that good at the insanely tough fadeaways. Like, he'll make them more than your average 7'4" guy, but
yeah, right. Among 7'4" guys, he's good at that. Yeah.
Benny, have you decided on your next picks yet?
I have, and I'm going to stick to my board, and I'm taking LeBron James here.
Ooh.
And I'll quickly make the case for and against. I see Mike already hates the pick. Great.
No, I like it. I was just hoping he'd slide to me.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, I think there's a huge tier that we're kind of about to start. And for me, I'll start with the negatives with LeBron. It's just that, like, I don't think he's a take over the game scorer anymore, especially in the context of like a playoff series. I mean, we saw in the he struggled pretty much like throughout that Wolves series in the fourth quarter. Like, I have the numbers right here. He shot 33% from the field in the fourth quarters of those games, 31% from three, wasn't getting to the line. Right? Like, as a scorer overall, LeBron's definitely taken a step back, but like the IQ, the defense, people have made a lot of. I still think when he wants to lock in, he can on that end. And for me, the real selling point of taking him here over some of the other guys on the board was his peak that I was watching, like, right after they made the Luka trade, when Luka was still sort of getting into shape, coming off the injury, getting acclimated. LeBron in February, 29, 11, and 7 on 66% true shooting. He was insane. Like, I mean, that Knicks game, the night they traded for Luka, we had the 40-point triple-double on the road.
He was
LeBron's
unbelievable.
peak last year was, like, I thought he was legitimately the best player in the NBA in February. And I don't see anybody else on the board who I can claim having a peak like that last year, even for some of the issues LeBron has at this stage.
I think that's totally fair. I mean, I think the thing that you're kind of, like the underlying thing is how reliably / often can we get that with a 41-year-old? But in terms of just like on his best day, it's like you've got arrested LeBron James, and it's like I need you to win me 3 games right now. It's like I have a hard time like strongly arguing against that, even at this point. Like he's obviously still every bit as good as a playmaker as he will always be. Like, he's going to keep getting better as he gets older. Like, which is just a cool thing of how that works. But like, LeBron is still like a very plus efficient scorer on pretty high volume when he wants to be. So
I think the good thing too about LeBron is like he he does a lot of the little things that help, like integrating a guy like Luka. Like he was happy to like spot up or cut or
Short
act as a
roll.
screener, secondary ball handler.
for sure.
Like all that stuff. I don't even know if you could say like Luka does that really as well as him or whoever. A lot of these guys, like even like Anthony Edwards, like I think like some of these guys just kind of need the ball in their hands, or some of the guys that are going to be lower on the list, like LeBron, like he's just slowly sort of tinkered away and improve these marginal areas over time through playing all the deep runs in the playoffs and whatever. And how many guys like would you rather want as like quarterbacking your team in terms of just pure like basketball IQ? I think there's like very few guys, if any, in the league right now that have the sort of like mental acumen that he does.
I think one of my favorite LeBron things, which is something that we could have always probably foreseen, is like, as you were saying, his willingness, not only willingness, just like ability to scale down and play basically any offensive role, which I do think makes him like a really scalable player. Maybe even more so than he was at his peak in some ways, just because he's a better shooter. Like you said, he's a better playmaker. But I think this is evidenced by like LeBron, like we said in the regular season, still a very high volume guy. He spent 30.5% of his time on the floor with the ball. In the playoffs, that dropped to 20%, by far the lowest of his career since we have that data. And like he was willing to, I think it takes like, not to be like the LeBron fan, but it's like, I do think it's worth something when you have a superstar who's like, okay, we have a guy who is better than me as the on-ball creator, as the guy who's bending the defense, and I'm just going to be the best off-ball mover, cutter, short roll passer, offensive rebounder. Like LeBron in the playoffs, he was more efficient than he was in the regular season, and he drew 4 more free throws per 100 possessions. Like that's crazy. And I think it's just honing in on the off-ball stuff, using his size and his speed and his positioning to get into spots. And yeah, I think you can certainly make an argument that if you have, I'm taking other guys on the board that are left over LeBron as my centerpiece, but
I think in the playoffs, his defense is still pretty impressive at times too for stretches, especially off the ball. I think he's very dialed into like, the spots on the floor the other team is trying to exploit. And, there are a lot of guys on this list that are not even close to the level of like sort of defensive communicator, orchestrator, backline rim protector that he is.
And think about what he's working with this Lakers team. I mean, he's probably got the worst defensive backcourt in the league. Maybe throw a couple
up there,
up
there,
right?
Up there, yeah.
Jackson Hayes at center, like Rui at the 4. I don't know. Like, there's not good defensive pieces on this team either, which kind of just
why they lost,
right? And why they lost, right? So, yeah, spot on.
I'm going a direction that I'm kind of surprised at myself for going, but I'm going to take Anthony Edwards here.
I like it.
I was going to say Bub. I thought you were going to say Bub Carrington. I don't know. Sorry.
Sorry.
I mean, I was between him and Keyshawn George, but like I think for now I'll lean Edwards. I think Keyshawn could get there in a couple of years. I think we've kind of danced around like with some of these high-level offensive initiators that have and haven't gone off the board. Like they're bleeding so much value on defense, but Ant is a fucking awesome defender now. Like he is a good playoff defender, especially for someone with his offensive load. Like in that Lakers series, his pressure on the ball at the point of attack, and like he's never going to be the most aware or impactful or consistent off-ball defender, even though I think he's better than I ever thought he would be ever at this point already. I don't think he's as mistake-prone of a defender as maybe his rep, just because like he was that super early in his career and up until like last couple years, I think. But yeah, he just has this ability to put pressure on the ball and to be physical and disrupt in the playoffs. He does it without fouling a ton either. I think you'll see moments where like he unlocks his rim protection as well. And like it's better in the playoffs too. Obviously contesting data isn't perfect, and especially in small samples, but it's consistently gotten better in the playoffs for him over the last couple of years. And I think you can just kind of chalk that up to also like more engagement and putting himself in situations before. And like Edwards is not a perfect offensive player, and the defense certainly helps his scalability and building great teams around him, because offensively he's certainly someone who you want the ball in his hands to maximize his value. And even if the shooting regresses, which I think it probably will to some extent, like there's enough stuff with his downhill pressure, his handle getting better. He's still not like a perfect playmaker and never will be, but I do think he's a lot better at just reading stuff out and making kind of simple passes. And I think he had some moments in this playoff run where he was really, really impressive as a passer. I think it was game 3 or 4. He had a couple plays where like they denied him off the ball and he'd cut back door, get the ball, and hit like an interior pass to Randall or Gobert. And that's just like not something he was doing 2 years ago. And he doesn't, and this is not something he's ever going to do as consistently as a guy like Steph or LeBron or, even other initiators that we're going to talk about later. But just the constant paint pressure and shooting, playmaking, and defense are good enough to me where like we've seen him be a playoff centerpiece and have success. And though I'm not like so certain how that sustains over like long periods of time without great teammates, but yeah, I think I'd love to see Ant on a team with like another real high level perimeter creator. I think there's a lot of potential for that to be really good, though I do think it could be like bumpy and it might take a second and there's definitely downside. But yeah, there were like 3 or 4 guys I was considering here, but I feel good about Ant.
I like it. I think an interesting question with Ant would be like, what would be the ideal big man to pair him with? Because I think like he, the times where they could play 5 out and Gobert wasn't on the floor just creates so much space for him to drive. But I also wonder if obviously the rim protection helps a lot. I don't know if there is a perfect answer, but like someone like Miles Turner, Chet, even Towns, like if he was playing lone big and then you could have a 4 who could sort of buoy the back line, I think that would probably be a lot more effective for him and would make his life a lot easier as a perimeter creator.
That is a good point. Yeah, I think just having it really doesn't need to be like I guess Miles Turner is literally the only name. But it's like any kind of balance of floor spacing with some kind of screening game and like more complementary decision making. Because Cat, I think, was really good for him in the way that it's like he's spacing the floor when you're using him as a high volume shooter. It's just such a threat that it opens driving lanes. But Cat's also really inconsistent in terms of his play with the ball. And I don't think he's particularly good for Cat, for Ant as an off-ball player necessarily. I think it'd be really interesting to see him with like some passing hub big. Like, I wonder how Ant would fare with like Sabonis.
Or Hardenstein. I think Hardenstein would be one. Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need a high usage guy.
Hardenstein's honestly a really good answer. I really like that as an Ant partner.
Well, I also have thought about even guys that just have like are better roll/lob threats. I mean, Ant isn't like a great lob passer specifically, but I think Gobert's short roll game is pretty bad right now. And he has some like the worst hands among rollers in the league, probably.
Gobert's also not a crazy lob threat either. So it's like Ant hasn't really had a
he's tall. Right. Yeah.
He hasn't really had a chance to develop his, it's like he's not, I agree, he's not a great lob passer, but kind of hard.
Nor is like Towns even really like a huge like lob receiver,
No.
Yeah. I think Hardenstein would be sick, or J Huff, I like that.
That's Pacers legend, baby. Oh, I'm excited for that.
Such a good Pacers pickup.
I love it. Mike, you've got the turn, so you got 2 picks coming up.
I think one of these picks is relatively easy, and the second one is very difficult for me. So the first one I'll get out of the way is Brunson. He could have an argument for probably going as high as 4 or 5 on this list and maybe slide to like 10 or 11, but I don't think you could really have him any lower than that based on what we saw in the playoffs. I think one of the things I like about Brunson is that he like I mentioned earlier, had probably the highest load among playoff guys and still maintained his efficiency. But I also like the idea of him even playing more off the ball is like not a bad idea to me, because his catch and shoot 3-point numbers have been consistently good throughout his career. And so I think it wasn't necessarily like his decision to be on the ball as much as he was. That's sort of just how it shook out in the end. And like, how they never really fully unlocked the Cat Brunson pick and roll, and Towns had some pretty inconsistent games toward the end of the playoffs. But I mean, just the amount of like clutch shots and sort of among guys on this list, there are very few guys that I trust more in high leverage playoff games, like in the fourth quarter, than Brunson. And I think that definitely counts for something. I'm not very high on his defense, and I still like wonder if like this is the sort of perfect, roster construction for him, because they were so top heavy this year and they just did not trust the bench at all, and they really had no one to roll out there. After, their guard rotation was not good. I mean, they had Deuce McBride off the bench, but like they basically had no backup wings. They had Mitchell Robinson off the bench that they trusted, but they basically played 7 guys max, not counting Landry Shamet, unfortunately. But
he had some moments in the playoffs, man.
He was okay. But like, I think, they made a few. They have Clarkson as a backup handler, and they got Yabusele, who I like. And so I still think the Knicks are going to be really good. And I liked what I saw from OG a lot in the playoffs. But overall, I think I'm pretty comfortable with taking Brunson at 9, just because he is a legit playoff performer, and there isn't really a perfect way to guard him. I feel like, I would say he's not the best pick and roll operator, but in isolation, there are very few guys that can sort of competently defend him one-on-one. I think maybe that is a knock on him, is that you can send a double team to him pretty easily because he has passing limitations at his size. And but yeah, he's a beast. He's a creation monster.
I would like to read you a stat. So this is playoffs, medium to high to very high leverage, 2023 to 2025. Jalen Brunson I feel like one of the things is like his on-off numbers, especially in the playoffs, like don't really reflect well.
Right.
So here's Jalen Brunson with Josh Hart on the floor. So this is 1,200 minutes plus 2 relative offensive rating. Jalen Brunson with Josh Hart off the floor, only 300-ish minutes over the last 3 playoffs, plus 8.2 relative rating. And I think while that's just one example, I think there's a lot of examples of Brunson being tethered to players who hold him down, and the Knicks roster construction being weird. I think his pick and roll partnership with Mitchell Robinson got better as the playoffs went on. And I'm really curious to see like what that could turn into if you have a full healthy season. And I think Brunson did legitimately get better as a playmaker this year. Like he had a pretty easy career high in potential assists per 100, easy career high in rim assists. I think he did a better job at like keeping his dribble alive and trying some of these tighter window interior passes. He's never going to be your tier 1 playmaker. He's never going to be Luka or Trey or Halliburton or whoever. That's just not who he is.
He's always been a good passer, honestly.
I think at this point, he's probably good enough to where if you have competent secondary creation, it's pretty hard to just sell out for him. Did the Knicks have competent secondary creation? I think you can argue that. From
I think I'd much rather take like his passing compared to a guy like Lillard. Honestly, I think Lillard is a much weaker passer in pick and roll, or just sort of.
He's just Brunson's ability to change speeds and like to slow down. I think aids his passing so much, because like even like Lillard is kind of a 1-speed guy, even at his peak. Like Donovan Mitchell, who I think might be a better passer in like a vacuum than Brunson. I think it's an interesting comparison.
That is an interesting comparison, yeah.
But I think Brunson, is just always going to have more chances to find these passing angles because he's so controlled. Whereas Mitchell loves to explode into the lane and do his split pick and rolls, new Euro steps. And I think there's a higher ceiling for that as a passer. But like Brunson is so rock solid overall as just an offensive engine. I think has a pretty strong case as like one of the best offensive floor raisers of the last couple of years, probably.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Mitchell, because that's who I was going to bring up, and maybe I'm showing my hand.
That's who you were taking next?
Well, I think I'm next.
Mike is next.
Oh, Mike's going to snipe you.
And he might, because like I said, but I would have taken Mitchell over Jalen Brunson because
Oh, I thought you were talking about Mitchell Robinson. I'm like, why are you guys
I'm just looking to pair them on the board, yeah.
I'm not talking about Davion. especially after that play-in game. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think those guys are similar tier. Stylistically, I've always just sort of preferred Mitchell, but also I think he's got similar, like a higher ceiling offensively because of some of the playmaking, because of the athleticism, because of the advantage creation in that sense. I think the off ball is a little bit better with Donovan Mitchell. Similar playoff riser resume. So
even though I feel like people like, or maybe it's just like people on Twitter who don't kind of respect Donovan Mitchell's playoff.
So good.
I mean, it's been more up and down lately, but Brunson hasn't always been up either, and Mitchell has just like always been a consistent playoff riser. But I think Brunson versus Mitchell is a very interesting conversation. But Mike, have you decided on your 10th pick yet?
I guess I'll go with Donovan Mitchell just because. The other guys I had a much harder time making the case for over him, I would say. And even just like, I mean, I don't want to, there's a few guys who I would say, you could put like Mobley I think Mobley is an interesting name in terms of like who is more important to the team. Just like in a vacuum, I think you could make an argument for him, especially with how they unlocked him as a ball handler. But then you have guys like AD, Durant. I don't know. I don't want to broadcast the next few picks, but I guess
don't spoil your board.
Mitchell is still like, yeah. I mean, there were points even in the Pacers series where he was just completely unguardable, even like with being like somewhat injured. Like I forget which game it was, but like.
Game 3,
he was absolutely.
He had game 2. He had 48 on 63% true shooting with 9 assists. Game that was game 2. Game 3 he had 43 on 65% true shooting with 5 assists. And game 4 he struggled, and game 5, only 31 on 50 true shooting. But like,
yeah.
Last year he gave the Magic 50 in game 7 while being injured. Come on.
Take for you guys. I think when Mitchell's 3-pointer is on, the only guy harder to guard in the league is Steph.
That's interesting. I would probably still take Jokic, but
sure.
Yeah, but he's definitely when Mitchell's 3-pointer is going. Well, also like I think one of the things that is hard is that I just like enjoy his game so much aesthetically. Like when he's got going and like splitting the pick and roll, and like he's probably my favorite driver in the league. I would say like in a vacuum, just in terms of like the variety of finishes, like it's also like similar to Brunson, like in terms of like Mitchell's probably like 6'1.5". Realistically, like he's really not big, and same with Brunson. Like Brunson's tiny as well, but the fact that like Mitchell can split the pick and roll and then like dunk over like Miles Turner or Siakam like with ease is just like absolutely incredible to me. He's still during the playoffs was like 35 points per 75 on like I think he was like -1 or something. So
can I say I thought his defense was pretty solid in the playoffs too?
Yeah, I think I think I think him and Garland actually for smaller guards like probably have a worse defensive reputation than they actually are, especially Garland. But yeah, I mean the Cavs had bad injury luck, and I also thought like it was a really I think like also they probably had more holes in their depth in the playoffs than the Pacers did, and they're like. If you take like the top 7 guys on each team or whatever, the Pacers have more guys you can trust in a playoff series versus, the Cavs. Like you have a little too much like Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome, like, even, I mean, Strus had some stretches when the guys were injured. He was decent, but even like Jared Allen at times can be a little timid in a playoff setting. And so,
I was bummed for him kind of
in
the playoffs.
So, I think it would have been interesting had Halliburton not gotten injured to compare him to these other guards in this range, because like he was just like had just an absolutely ridiculous playoffs, even if statistically maybe like scoring or whatever, like it wasn't as like strong as them. But
it would probably I mean he'd probably go off the board in the 7 to 10 range.
I would say that's probably accurate. I also thought it was I really like Mitchell just as like a team oriented guy, and like I really liked his mindset this year and taking more of an off ball load, and he was okay, like sort of downshifting his individual scoring for the benefit of the team and letting like Garland handle and or even like Mobley handle more and playing more off the ball. So I think like him being able to play off the ball a lot and his movement shooting can be really good at times. And I think that unlocks a lot. He's a pretty like sort of like polished, just sort of like all around offensive player. Like I don't think there are many holes you could sort of poke in his game, you know?
True. Yeah. I think Donovan's like, he has offensive superpowers, like his ability to get skinny through tight spaces and explode in the paint. But he also doesn't really have significant weakness. Like he's not a primary level playmaker, though I think he's closer to that than people generally give him credit for.
I think just like the pressure he puts on the rim, like, you know, creates like good things for your offense no matter what. Similar to like Ant, where they're not like high level manipulators maybe, but they still can make good reads and like I think Mitchell's like definitely a good extra passer and like good decision maker in general, like in sort of attacking closeout situations. Yeah, I don't know. I love
one more kind of random curiosity I have about his defense is that like, has anybody who's like switched teams played with better consistent like defensive paint players than Donovan Mitchell? Like he said, Rudy Gobert and Evan Mobley his whole career, and you know maybe that's boosting his defense to some extent. But I do think his impact, like you can see, independent. He was at 4 deflections per 100 possessions in the playoffs this year, which was like 80th plus percentile for guards, especially considering his offensive load. Like his activity is always impressive to me. I think he makes plays with his athleticism. I mean, he's got like a +9 wingspan or something. It's crazy.
Yep, I like it. Who's next on the board?
This is a tough spot. I have a tier of like 10 players at this point.
Because I don't. I'm not going to say anything. Just go ahead.
Yeah,
man.
I have a big tier that just started with everyone who's off the board now, and I think I'm just going to take Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's like a 4 or 5 guys who I seriously considered here, but I feel good about KD. I'm curious how you guys think he's going to acclimate in Houston, because they're probably going to want to lean on him as their primary offensive guy. Not sure if he's fully equipped to do that in terms of like the pick and roll playmaking load, but man, I mean, just as someone who's going to add unbelievable floor spacing, I think his defense was still excellent last year for the most part, especially like, holy shit, he carried that Suns defense in games. Like there were games where he would be flying around and covering everything as a rim protector. And it's certainly not consistent, understandable given his age and his offensive load, but especially on a team like Houston, he's going to be surrounded by awesome defenders. He's not going to have to expend as much energy on that end as he has recently in Phoenix. So I'm curious to see if that could maybe lead to another uptick in scoring volume. Like he's seen each year, last 4 years, he's declined in points per game, still at 27 points per game on +6.6 relative true shooting, which is, he's Kevin Durant. But I do think he's at a place where he's a good enough playmaker. Like the Rockets are definitely contenders for sure. I think they probably need a leap from one of their other handlers to really get there, because I'm not sure Durant is like capable of being like the offensive floor raiser on a championship winning team, especially not at this point in his career. But as a ceiling raiser, like he's still as good as they come. And I'm really excited to see the way he can elevate this honestly just disgusting Rockets offense for a lot of the year, especially in the half court, which is like, that's where Durant, I think, makes the biggest impact. The Rockets could not score in the half court last year.
I think I'm weirdly like higher on Durant nowadays as like a regular season floor raiser, but lower on him as like a high level playoff guy. Because I don't know. I think like
What were his
numbers in the Wolves series? I don't really recall.
I think he's like when he was on the Suns, and the Suns had sort of like a pretty, like when they played the Nuggets in the playoffs a few years ago, it was just like very predictable offensive system, and like Durant nor Booker could really figure out how to like attack a hedge. And I think Durant can struggle with physicality at times nowadays in the playoffs, especially. And like Aaron Gordon is able to like bump him off his spot and sort of get into his body, and Durant can sort of have this like sort of butterfingers type thing going on where his handle will get loose or whatever. But I think like their defense is going to be incredible no matter what. And even if he's like, even if they're, I'd be curious to see if like they try and play sort of more egalitarian offensive style while running certain sets for Durant. Because I think like him just as like even like a play finisher, like attacking closeouts, or
do you think they have the personnel to do that?
I just mean like if let's say like Van Vliet, Şengün pick and roll, and you have Durant as like the shaker.
Yeah, I guess like him over Jabari Smith or something.
Oh my god, like elite, like in that situation, and like I think you can still like use his unique like blend of like movement shooting sort of, or like run staggered screens off the ball for him and have him come downhill, and he can, if he draws two, he can make that roll pass to Şengün. So yeah, I think it's gonna be fascinating. I'm still unclear to me like where I would sort of place them overall in the West. I think they're probably the third best team to me. I think OKC so and Denver are a tier actually above. I think I would put the Rockets a little lower, but I don't know if I don't know if I'd have anyone above the Rockets. I think their defensive floor is just so high, and I mean, replacing Jalen Green with Kevin Durant is just like an insane upgrade. And I think you can still expect like Amen to get a little better, Şengün probably to get a little better.
Right. Yeah, and it's just like they had the Suns last year. Weirdly, I think like Van Vliet's going to be such a nice player to play with for him. The Suns shot quality was just, even with Booker, and like Booker's obviously grown a lot as a kind of distributor, but even with him, it felt like throughout so many stretches over his son's tenure, the shot quality was fully reliant on whether or not Kevin Durant was locked in and producing good shot quality, either as a scoring threat or just as someone who's drawing defenses. Whereas like, I think Van Vliet was probably overextended in terms of how badly the Rockets needed him to just like stabilize what they were doing. It's like, all right, Van Vliet, he's not going to be an efficient scorer, but like, he's not going to turn the ball over. He'll set up their guys in basic spots. Like, Van Vliet's not a high level like interior passer. He's not super anticipatory, I don't think, or throws in tight windows. But like if you're running a pick and roll and the weak side defender tags the roller and the shooter like Jabari Smith lifts, he'll find him every time. And when that guy's Kevin Durant, I think there's plenty of potential for that to be really good. But
I think like the Suns were just like screaming for like a table setter, kind of like I don't
like.
I think there's
one
like
that's better than Tyus Jones.
Yeah, like it's probably with Tyus.
Yeah, I just think they had like 2 to 3 guys, if you count Beal as a guy at this point in his life, who like basically had sort of very similar strengths and weaknesses, and there was not like a balance of sort of skill sets across the roster. And I think like at the very least, I'm just like fascinated to see like what stuff they try, like Durant, Amen Thompson pick and roll or something. Like you could even go just like Durant as the roller or something, or Popper and Amen gets downhill, or inverted, or however, like they're Şengün, Durant, inverted pick and roll. I don't know. Like
I was very unenthused generally last year with Houston's like offensive design and creativity, but I think you can also make an argument that like their personnel was certainly limiting, and it's like, right, oh, we have Kevin Durant now. Let's try out some new stuff that we just simply couldn't access before.
Last thing I'll say on Durant, everyone's heard this, but the Suns were 33-29 with him in the lineup. They were 3-17 without him. And the Suns,
I didn't even remember. Right, I didn't even remember it was that bad. That's insane.
It was that bad. And I agree with you. With all the other issues, like they were still over a 500 team with Durant just on the court, So, yeah, I think that's the right pick.
Cool. I'll take. You have the turn.
Great. I will take the other guy that I had in this tier with Durant, and that's Anthony Davis, who I think people have just sort of forgotten about, partly because of the Luka trade and him being the second guy, partly because I don't even know. I think Anthony Davis is really damn good. Like the 3-point shooting hasn't really developed since, from the New Orleans days, and I think he still has some limitations offensively, but like his ceiling defensively is still really strong. The way he was like, especially early in the season last year, switching on to guards was really good.
His defense is still ridiculous at times. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you just pull up some of his highlights down the stretch with the Mavs, which again, he was sort of in and out of the lineup with injuries. I mean, his final game of the season, 23, 13, and 10 with 7 blocks. Like, the guy is insane. You know what I mean? So I think he can
you watch
still
the
really well.
Rockets game, like I think was that his first game on the
Yeah, when
the Rockets got hurt.
he hurt his
was
groin. He was
absolutely
dominant in that
He was
first half.
murdering them on both ends the entire game before he got
Yeah.
hurt. Like he was the arguable best defense in the league, was just getting ripped to shreds.
We've seen him perform in the playoffs. I think he's scalable. I think, he can play the 4, he can play the 5. Like, I'm still a huge
He can play the 5.
I still think it's interesting though. Like I don't know exactly like what his optimal role is like offensively. Like I think the Lakers sort of redesigned their system to sort of have AD as the focal point, but it's like really hard to design an offense around him when he can't quite space the floor fully nowadays. And if like you're like sort of like designing a play to like for him to get like a touch at like the elbow, like that isn't always going to be the most efficient shot. And I think just like teams have figured out ways to create more sustainable offense. Like, if you watch the Pacers or whoever, like the Cavs, whoever, like the Lakers, because I think like rightly so, like they wanted to force feed him the ball and get him as many touches as possible. But I just don't. I see him more as like an elite number 2 option on offense rather than like a 1A guy at this point in his career, while still being like an incredible defensive anchor. But I don't know.
I agree with that.
Interesting about the Mavs fit too, without any real elite playmakers. How they traded Luka, it's like, that's what always worked with LeBron, right? LeBron could set the table, or. So we'll see how it all plays out. But
I wonder how much more they lean into like AD as that guy, because there was a nice little like ball screen chemistry developing last year between him and Max Christie, who I'm glad got to go over with him and get to work through that. And like the Mavs have so many bigs. It's like, how can they not stumble into Anthony Davis pick and rolls as the ball handler? It's like I feel like it's going to be hard to avoid. With you're gonna have to
without Kyrie. Like I was fascinated to see like how the Kyrie AD thing would have worked together. But
it was looking great in that Rockets game.
Right.
And I'm really curious to see how him and Flag fit together offensively. Because the only thing I worry about at times is like if AD still wants to play like the 4 on defense, like their defense is going to be absolutely insane. Like Flag, AD. Take your pick of Lively or Gafford. PJ. But like offensively, like and PJ, like how are you going to fit all these guys in? But let's just take your pick of one of the wings plus AD and a big.
Crazy.
It's just like, can you really play like 3 non-spacers if Cooper doesn't hit the 3 immediately when he's like in the league? And
their offense is going to be atrocious, I think, without Kyrie. I mean, it's just hard for me to see maybe not atrocious. It's hard for me to see pathways to them being even average, but I don't think that. I mean, that's not reflective of Anthony Davis as much.
What do you think is their starting lineup going to be?
God, oh man, I guess they start D'Lo, Clay, Cooper, AD, Lively would be my guess.
I could see them. Yeah, maybe.
I think Lively. I could
see PJ starting and Cooper being the 6th man maybe to start, but I don't really. It doesn't really either way. It's like whatever.
What's the percent chance PJ is on the team by March?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean,
I guess for me, it's hard to figure out like which one of the guy, because they have PJ, they have Najee Marshall, they have Caleb Martin, they have Max Christie, they have. It's like such a weird roster.
Go ahead.
Would you trade PJ and a first for Kobe White?
I think I probably would. Yeah. I mean, our buddy.
Can I get a light protection on the first?
our buddy Brett Kornfeld was pitching me for a while a PJ for Norm Powell swap, which I thought was pretty interesting. I think Norm is definitely, has less trade value than Kobe White, but I actually think it would have probably benefited both teams. And Norm ended up getting traded anyway, so like the Clippers were clearly looking to shop him.
Would you do PJ and Lively for Derek White?
No.
Oof, that's a lot. That's a lot for Derek White.
I don't know. I think I rate Lively high enough, and I think White is maybe declining. I don't know. Not
What if it's
declining.
Gafford and 2 firsts?
Is there a chance that Lively makes this list on his day? I don't know. I don't
think
know.
so.
Fair enough. Does White make it today?
We'll see.
We'll see.
Well,
All right.
Andrew, let's get to 13 and see who your next pick is so we can figure that out. So
I'm ecstatic with this pick. I'm going to take Cade Cunningham. I mean, post All-Star break, 28, 5 and 8. I think the 3-point shot, which to me was always a little bit of a mystery coming out of Oklahoma State, is no longer a mystery. I mean, he was 37% after the All-Star break on good volume. Yeah, like he's big. I think he's a good defensive player. Like clearly led that offense that also doesn't have a ton of great offensive pieces around him. You know, like not a ton of shooting. Say we want about like a Jalen Duren. Yeah, no question. I mean, like total focal point offensively for a pretty good Pistons team that, you know, was in a running for like winning that first round matchup. So I love Cade. I think he's got the upside and he's only getting better. Easy pick for me.
this is slightly rich for me, but I get it. He's in the tier. He's
I
definitely he's in the tier of guys, but I think right now, and maybe you want to say like by the if we're saying for next season, he'll get better at this. But I do think we saw enough like real limitations in the playoffs for me that like I have him in this tier and I get it. I think he'll get better at them. But I do think just for right now, like his scoring at the rim is still like relatively. I think especially in the playoffs does definitely worry me. Like very small sample. He shot 54% at the rim in the playoffs. It's really not good for his size. It was about the same in the regular season. I think a couple percent higher. He's never been a good finisher. And just when he's kind of creating on the ball, his creation chances just in the regular season as well aren't nearly as efficient as when he's, as a play finisher or a spacer, which makes sense, of course. That's natural. But I understand it because I think Cade's combination of like offensive floor raising with his shot and his pick and roll game, and then what he can do on the defensive end, especially I think if, theoretical situation, I don't think this Pistons context was bad for him at all, but I don't think it was like amazing either. It wasn't like, I don't know. I think the floor spacing they put together in a lot of those lineups was really good. I think while Duren is like a pretty atrocious defender, is like a pretty good offensive partner for him. But I do think the main thing, it's like, especially with Ivy breaking his leg and, who knows how that's going to impact his development. Just the only other guy on the team who could dribble was Dennis Schroeder. And like, it's fun. He actually had a pretty good series, but I'm really curious to see like whether Ivy makes that leap, whether Asar or Holland takes it on ball leap, or whether they acquire someone else, like what that looks like. I really don't have any questions though. Like Cade has always been willing and able to take a back seat. I always remember his like last EYBL season, he was like 30 points per game on high efficiency as the offensive centerpiece. And he was like a, late career Chris Paul on that Montverde team, basically. And then we saw what he did at Oklahoma State. So yeah, a little rich for me, but I do understand it.
I would agree.
I'll see who you take then, because for me, it's just like, I don't see anyone else on the board right now who can be an offensive focal point who also has like the defensive abilities of Cade. I don't see who the two-way guy.
Generally agree with that.
I think that's fair. I think it's we're getting into a territory where it's like, would you rather like an A+ second or third option, or like a B+ A- first option, kind of, know?
Since you asked, or Mike, any other thoughts on Cade before I get to the next guy?
I think overall, like I was pretty happy with his improvement during the regular season, but he had a pretty bad playoff series. I mean, he was like 22 points for 75 on like -8 and shot 5 for 28 from 3. So it wasn't just his rim finishing. He really had a bad stretch from 3 as well. But I mean, the Knicks, that was like an incredibly physical series. And I think he probably had to lean into taking slightly more inefficient shots for the benefit of the team, because you just don't trust Tobias Harris or whoever else to like make plays in the playoffs. Even I thought like Isaiah Stewart getting injured hurt them quite a bit. Overall, I think Cade is in this zone. I think there's like a lot of guys who you could make an argument for, so I don't really have an issue with it. But I'm still curious to see how he develops his like downhill rim finishing. And I don't know. I think the Pistons are going to be at a similar level next year, maybe slightly better. I think like we'll see what happens with the Malik Beasley situation, but they got Duncan Robinson back. They got.
I love their offseason. I can't lie.
And like who else did they pick up? Remind me.
I like the Levert get a good amount.
Yeah, I like that. I like that too. More handling.
I wanted them to get Miles Turner. Like I wish they overpaid for Turner.
That would have been really cool. I mean, I get it because they're invested in two pretty useful bigs at the moment, but like that would have been cool. Like, okay, so I'm very happy with the Durant pick. I don't regret it. That wasn't the best player on my board at that point, but I did a little gamesmanship because I knew Fenny wasn't going to take Evan Mobley. So I knew that I could also get Kevin Durant and get Evan Mobley, who was first on my board outside of the top 10 guys. I rate Benny. I'm going to make you do this. Would you like to guess Evan Mobley's relative true shooting in the playoffs this past year?
Not really.
And how many points he scored per game?
Either way, but go ahead.
He scored 20 points per game in the playoffs this year per 75 possessions. What was his relative true shooting?
Yeah, throw a guess, Fenny.
It was it was plus 5.9 in the regular season. I'll give you that as well.
Okay, because my guess was going to be plus 5, so I assume it's higher than it was in the regular season. So 7.5.
It's plus 12.5. Part of that is just because he was on an absolute heater from 3, which, like, I don't know how much you can replicate.
I believe.
I think he's going to develop into a legit shooter. He's made great progress. He shot. That was just the playoffs. Like he definitely didn't shoot 84% from the line in the regular season, but he did shoot 72%, which is better. Which is consistent improvement. But as you were kind of alluding to, like we're choosing between now these flawed kind of primary guys or ideal second options. I think Mobley is growing into that guy, if not already. I mean, defensively, that's obviously where the bulk of his value I think is always going to come. We alluded to it earlier, but I do think Mobley is pretty clearly the best non-Wemby defender. I mean, it really is him, maybe Chet, maybe like you said, at his best moments, Draymond probably compares as well. But yeah, he was basically a top 15, 20 defender in the league the second he walked into the NBA, and he's only continued to get better on that end. It's really remarkable, the stuff that he's done. But Mobley, who's a guy who like never does as well in impact metrics, and I suspect part of it is just because of the Allen thing, where they kind of cannibalize each other's on-offs at times. But Mobley, I mean, just in terms of his range as a rim protector, his ability to block shots, and I think his presence allows the Cavs to run more offensively slanted lineups than other teams could realistically get away with. Like the Spurs could do this too. I think we talked about how like the Spurs are kind of not building great around their center with these kind of skills as a paint protector. It's like the Cavs have taken this and run, obviously, with, there's the Allen fit, which is probably not ideal for the long term. But then offensively, like I really do think Mobley is just that guy now. And it's now 2 straight playoffs of him being able to up his scoring load at times. It was down overall in the playoffs in the regular season, but given like injuries and weird fluctuations, you'll see games where Evan Mobley is really being aggressive. I still think he can get better at that for sure. Like I wish it was more consistent, and I don't know if he's ever going to be the kind of player who can really take over games as a scorer the way that his ability should suggest that he can. But like he's an awesome playmaker. He's really good passing on drive. He's an excellent transition player. Of course, like the grab and goes. And of course, he's one of the best players of all time, in my opinion, at like keeping his own blocks in bounds. He's been amazing at that since,
him and Bill Russell
since he was in high school. I think you hear Tim Duncan. I feel like Tim Duncan's is the one I always hear. But yeah, his blocks always get recovered by the Cavs defense just because of, his incredible control and touch and timing. And yeah, I think offensively, especially with the shooting getting better, like we obviously know Evan Mobley can take a back seat and play a complementary role, so he's great on great teams. We already know that. But I do think the question with him and the case against him would revolve around like what his offensive ceiling looks like on worse teams and what it necessarily looks like with less optimal. I mean, I don't think less optimal coaching because like I don't think JB Bickerstaff was doing him favors last year or like ever necessarily. And obviously he got a lot better with with Atkinson this year. But of course he's getting older. You know, you'd expect him to get better. But yeah, I feel really good about taking Mobley here, honestly.
Whose offense are you more? I know this isn't really what the point of this video is, but like offensively long term, him or Chet?
Definitely Mobley. Definitely Mobley.
Really?
I think Chet has.
See, I would disagree.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
I think Chet is just physically much more limited as a driver. I think it's kind of like stiffness and high hips. And this was kind of an issue we saw prop up in the playoffs quite a bit. Like he definitely had his moments, but especially when Chet, because like his catch and shoot is inconsistent and his release is kind of slow. I think contests bother him more than a lot of players. And Mobley, while not being as, productive or consistent as shooter, I don't think necessarily has that issue, which maybe you can argue translates better to the playoffs. I don't think we have a large enough sample to really say definitively, but I think Mobley's also a kind of different level of playmaker.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because like it's funny because like Chet struggled to shoot from three at times, but his shot looks so much more fluid and like whereas like Mobley can sort of shoot an ugly ball at times, but then like kind of goes in. And then similarly on drives, like Mobley's ball handling is something he's had to improve on a lot, and that was definitely a knock on him. And still at times it can be pretty loose. And like whereas Chet can have these like sequences where he has like crazy like almost like young like Kevin Durant-esque like fluid spins and whatnot. But like Mobley, I feel like is able to like maintain his balance better on drives sometimes, and like can sort of. I think Mobley definitely is better as like a bully ball player compared to Chet right now, and like that's something.
And I think in a vacuum probably has better ball skills. Like if you just he's going to look better in an open gym workout, but I think Mobley is just a much more functional handler. And I'm curious to see like which one can catch up to the other either faster or just at all. Like whether Mobley can continue. I think Mobley has a really deep bag of like footwork mix-ups and like decels and wrong foot stuff, even though I think that's a little bit separate from the actual ball handling of it all. Because like you said, he is so functionally strong and powerful, like he can just kind of go through guys, whereas Chet has to rely on his handle more. But like, Chet probably doesn't have the frame to ever get super strong, but I don't think him adding more functional strength is out of the question. Like he's not done getting stronger. So I think it's really interesting. I agree. That's really interesting. And I would imagine we see Chet at some point.
I also wonder, like, I mean, one of the things that really improved the Cavs offense was like, Kenny Atkinson making the clever, but maybe obvious move of just allowing Mobley to be like a point forward and having the running inverted pick and roll and spreading the floor around him. And I wonder if you think Chet could have similar success in that, because OKC sort of designs like, the way that they sort of set up the court is similar at times to the Cavs. If you're like having a guard come screen, in the middle of the floor for like a bigger handler or something. And I just, we haven't seen that yet from Chet. So I'm hesitant to say that he could but I'm also hesitant to say that like he would be as good as Mobley at doing that just straight away.
Yeah. I think Chet is like he's a very like nice creator and handler against like tilted defenses, whereas I'm not as sure about a primary. But the shooting is probably always going to be a big gap. I think it's more likely that Chet like fixes his mechanical and release issues than he like Mobley gains the like natural touch and just ability that Chet has had for a long time.
Yeah, I still just like genuinely believe in Chet as a shooter.
Oh, me too.
Immediately, like the first game, like watching him in the league, I was like, "Oh, this guy's like, yeah,
he'll be fine." Yeah, I mean, he obviously has issues, but he was like again 21, 22 playing in the highest level of games. But Mike, you have the turn now.
Oh man, this is where it gets really difficult.
Yeah, I think it's been hard.
Yeah, it's been hard, but I think there's a bunch of guys who have an argument here, or maybe like 5 or 6 guys, I would say. Oh man, This is gonna be tough. I'm gonna do like an unpopular pick probably, or like I'm definitely reaching here, but I'm just gonna do it anyways. I'm gonna take Pascal Siakam.
Wow.
Whoa.
I love that. I mean, look,
I mean, it's definitely a reach,
you're
but
not gonna get complaints from me.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
like I mean, there was zero drop off from him in the postseason. He basically matched his regular season scoring and efficiency, and I thought he just like was pretty like relatively elite on defense. Like honestly, I think his defense took a step forward in the playoffs, and just like all the little things he did, he's just like probably one of the most versatile players in the NBA at this point, and like how his shot has come around. He's incredible in transition, like very versatile defender, albeit not elite at probably guarding any position. So I'd say he's probably the best at guarding like threes or fours, but he got switched on to Shea a few times and just like blanketed him in the finals. And like, I don't think that's like out of his realm entirely. And same with like matching bigger guys that are trying to mash him in the post. Like I think he has the length to bother them.
He was the best. He was by far the best cat defender on the Pacers.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Low bar given the front court situation, but like he held up better than I think most guys. His
Pacers were there. It was his like on off was plus 14. And like even just like the net on court rating, they were like plus 6 with him on the floor. So I think like there was a steep drop off when he wasn't there, and even like. Do I think he could be a primary basically on any good team, like number one option? No, but I think like he just like is a perfect like second or third guy on like really good teams. I think like I mean he was the second best player on a finals team, and that has to count for something.
Could
like,
probably argue best at times.
I mean like the other guy, yeah, I would say that's probably accurate because like Halliburton's scoring was a little more inconsistent. I think like. And he had the cap trade.
Just a less consistent player.
Yeah, and so I just like love the all around game he gives you. He's like a very like I think he was a pretty consistent regular season player if I remember correctly too. So he's good at like just sort of being an innings eater
All-star.
for any team. Yeah, all-star. Like, and I don't think anyone really had an issue with him being an all-star.
Nope.
And I like among the other guys that were on the board. They're like even someone like Cat, who I was considering taking, was just like way more inconsistent and has way more flaws, like probably on both ends. Like I think like Cat, better shooter, probably a better like peak offensive player, but like also has his issues as a driver and like, I don't know, maybe is like too reliant on his outside shooting. And if you take that away, like what do you really have left sometimes? And then obviously like very flawed defender. And even, you know, it's just like, I think the consistency of Siakam was what drew me to taking him this high. Cause I think there are other guys that are just not there for me.
The more I look at my own board, the more I like the pick.
I had Siakam much higher on my board than I thought. I think I only had like 3 or 4 guys over him. So I certainly, you know, it's just like Pascal Siakam, like top 15 player.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you see what he does. And I certainly owe Pascal an apology because of how bad I thought his defense was last year in the playoffs. And I was worried. About the contract. I wasn't happy. And then he just flipped the switch and kind of went back to the guy he was. Like he was unreal on defense this year. And I think it matters the way that he could be a plus defender. The Pacers defense this year was, not counting garbage time, was 11 points per 100 better with him on the floor. That's absolutely nuts.
I mean, and the fact that he shot 39% from 3 this year, like which is like crazy. Like
the fact that he is a guy who's constantly involved in offensive action. He plays a lot of minutes. He's always moving on offense, and he still has the energy to expend on defense. Like so many of the best wing defenders in the league don't play high minutes, but Siakam does. So
I also just like his like overall mindset. I feel like he's clearly like a worker and is just like improved marginally, like over the course of his career, like very consistently.
He's like the best teammate, is like the best
guy.
guy.
Like similar to like Donovan Mitchell too, where I'm like, I just like want that guy on my team, kind of, you know.
For sure.
Okay, so I think we'll move on to the next pick, which I'm still. Oh man, I'm so split on this. Oh man, I think I'm gonna go J-Dub, Jalen Williams, and I think you got to move that to 17 actually. Oh wait, you got it. Never mind.
Nope.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely had his warts in the playoffs. I think he had a slight efficiency drop while still maintaining decent scoring volume. But similar to Shea, I think like he really figured stuff out over time. And even though his offense was a little inconsistent, like, I mean, some of those games in Denver, I just did not feel confident in him as like a shooter when they were playing the zone and sort of just him hitting open shots. But then he'd like sort of redeem himself in like game 7. He had like a huge performance, and like even game 5 against the Pacers in the finals, he had like 40
in the finals.
That was his crowning achievement. And I just think like Ben and I like internally like making videos and stuff like we were like, this guy's just like the modern Scottie Pippen kind of. And
Ben
I
Taylor
think like
thinking basketball, to be
Ben
clear.
Taylor is thinking basketball, yeah.
Not me.
And I think he's one of, if not the most versatile defenders in the NBA right now, outside of like the bigs. I would say like, I mean, his like backline rim protection because of his insane wingspan and just like size is like such a boon. And just like, he's always like getting a lot of deflections. And I just like, I don't know. I also think like he's like, he can do so many things on offense in terms of like playing pick and roll. He's like a pretty good lob thrower to like Chet or Hartenstein, and like even his like his counters in terms of like step back jumpers, mid-range operation. Like I think, you know, he had stretches where when he was scoring 40, it was just this like 3-level elite scoring package of like stride, finishes, drawing fouls, step back threes. Like, I mean, and he's still like super young. So overall,
his scoring is like aesthetic in a way that I feel like gets him like discredited. I remember some people on Twitter after that 40-point game being like, "Oh, it's all like easy buckets." It's like, yeah, because he created them all easily, and he's an awesome. I remember at the beginning of that game, he had a couple like awesome cut and finishes off of iHeart, like top key backdoor cuts, and people are like, "Oh, it's like that like you think any player can do that," and it's just not true, but. One of my favorite little subplots of this season was in the regular season, Jalen Williams, when he was on the floor and Shea was off the floor, their offense was below league average. It wasn't good. With Jalen Williams on the floor and Shea off the floor in the playoffs, their offense was 7 points better than league average. And obviously small samples and noise, but the fact that he, at least in the context of this one playoff run, pretty much answered one of the most significant ways that you can get advantages on the Thunder. It's like, all right, when Shea's off the floor, we can really beat them with our offense. But when J-Dub is, you know, shooting the way he shot in the playoff at times, and obviously because of his age, I think there's just more baked in inconsistency, and that doesn't really scare me as much. But like, yeah, especially just like projecting linear improvement for this season, I think he was either my best player left or one of the best two available. And defensively, I think he's, man, I think it's him or Caruso as the best non-center defender in the NBA for me, or non-big, I guess, to include Draymond. But like,
wow, yeah, that's strong. Those are strong words. I like it.
He is like you kind of mentioned earlier, like the Thunder's best statistical stretch on defense came without Chet or Isaiah Hartenstein. J-Dub was just playing center for like a month plus, and he was awesome at it. And then he did it at times in the playoffs when they'd run small, though I don't think their small lineups were as good in the playoffs generally.
They had a few stretches where they just like turned it on and just like did a little like blitzkrieg, like small lineup, just like Case and Wallace, Caruso, whatever.
But yeah, I mean, I think J-Dub is like,
he's just like one of the best two-way players in the NBA, just like straight up.
One option, has some frustrating qualities about him too. Like his finishing seems so poor, and like low-hanging fruit reasons for that could potentially be fixed. And just the way that he's like changed his game, he's probably not as controlled of a ball handler, or like as diverse as a finisher as he was as a rookie. But like he's obviously so much better in other ways that it doesn't really matter.
I think he's probably also like a top 5 like wing passer in the league. like amongst like guys who are like wings or forwards, like I don't, they're outside of like LeBron and maybe like if you count like Jimmy Butler, there are very few passers that are better than him in my opinion. Yeah, so that's my pick.
Love it.
Yeah,
I think we're all kind of in agreement there. I don't feel really good about this, but I'm gonna take Kawhi.
yeah.
Yep.
And I don't feel good about it for the obvious reason that you have no idea, that you're basically spinning a wheel for how many games he's going to play in the regular season and the playoffs. We got him for the playoffs this year, though. Thankfully, they didn't beat the Nuggets, but they did push them to 7. And while Kawhi wasn't perfect by any means in that series, I'll talk a little bit about some of the areas where I don't think he's as good. Like, he was really damn good in that playoff series. Kawhi was at 25 points on plus 6.2 relative true shooting in the playoffs, 40.5% on his threes. He was absolutely frying, and just the way that he could score, like still while being like a dominant ISO scorer, but just like within the flow of the offense, like he's so good at just catching at the elbow, going up for a jumper, making a quick move. And I think that's probably when he's at his best, honestly. I think Kawhi's main issue at this point in terms of not including health is just that his playmaking is really inconsistent. Especially, I think it was game 1 where I don't know, was it game 1 or game 2 against Nuggets where he had a bunch of turnovers, and the Nuggets were just like really making his life hell with pressure and showing him different looks. So we're talking about, I don't think Kawhi is necessarily a primary offensive option anymore, like for a championship winning team. But I think when it comes to second options and another guy who can be a like kind of toggle between, like you can give him a mediocre roster and just give him a bunch of shots and he's probably going to be okay. But also I think he works well on good teams because he's, again, not the world beating defender that he once was, of course, but still very good and damaging when he locks on. I don't know. I thought his defense in the Nuggets series was like up and down. I feel like, if I recall, but like
I'd have to like look back. I think he was like good enough. It wasn't an issue by any means.
I was skimming through my notes and just like not finding a ton of consistent signal from what I was writing. But yeah, I mean, he's Kawhi at some point.
I feel like their guard defense was more of the issue, honestly. It was like him, Batum, Zubats didn't really have an issue with them, but it was like how they really struggled to guard like Murray off screens and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Nuggets don't really have like a scoring wing that would expose Kawhi regardless, right?
Right.
So, Kawhi, to me, the only issue, I would say, like similar to what Mike, you said earlier about Durant feeling a little predictable offensively.
Yeah.
I think because Kawhi is maybe just slowing down with age a little bit, and that's just kind of naturally his game. Just the mid-range, one dribble, get to his spot. Can feel a little predictable. But yeah, I mean, he was the second-ranked player I have left on my board. So
yeah, I would agree. He's like almost like the most elite, like play finisher / like off 2 dribble guy, kind of like maybe like within like 3 dribbles or less guy in the league. Like, but
and that lets him like moonlight as a primary against defenses that aren't like totally game planning for him. But like when you can take that away, I think it. And I think we saw that in the Denver series, even though we also saw moments where it's like, what was the thinking? What was the thumbnail that you guys used? It was like playing chess with a robot.
Had like some Terminator robot.
And it's just like
But I mean, that game 2 where he had 39, he was just absolutely unguardable. Like it didn't matter who was in his face. Like he just like would make.
And of course, this is we obviously know about the injuries, but when Kawhi plays in the playoffs, he is awesome. This has been a career-long thing for him. So.
Yeah, and I just think like he's great at what he does, and I'm not expecting him to be like a high-level manipulator as a passer or something, because that's never really been his game. Like even on like the championship level or championship winning teams, like there were other guys to take off sort of like the playmaking load, and he could just sort of focus on making the shots that were available to him and sort of ISO scoring. Whereas like, if you look at that Raptors team, it's like Van Vliet, Marc Gasol, great passer, whoever, Siakam. Like there was just like a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and he could just really zero in on like sort of like doubling down on his strengths more than anything, rather than being like a high level like pick and roll guy who you want like, handling the ball in that way.
for sure. Andrew Fenichel, you have 2 more picks. I mean, you have more than 2 picks, but just 2 picks for the moment.
Yeah, haven't traded the rest yet. We're not the Clippers.
For cash considerations.
Yeah, yeah, right. My first pick is a guy that I think could have or at least should be in the Mobley Siakam conversations, and it's Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah,
because I guess this would be sort of my issue with the Mobley pick. Just looking at value on the board, if we're gonna game theory this whole thing, I guess I took Cade at 13 because I think he was so superior as an offensive initiator compared to who was left versus Mobley versus Siakam versus Jaren. I think they're all they're different players, but it's similar, right? And I think Jaren's scalability, as we've seen with injuries in and out of the Grizzlies lineups over the last couple years, he's had to be their number one offensive weapon. And he was. He was their best, even with Ja in the lineup. I thought Jaren was often their best offensive player. I think that's really impressive. I think he's a better shooter than Mobley, at least a higher volume, right? I think they shot a pretty similar number, but I think that defensively, he's, incredible. He's switchable, rim protector. Yeah, I would love to see him on a true contender situation. And I thought at one point the Grizzlies were going to get there, but I love what I saw from Jaren last year.
I love the pick.
Yeah. Jaren was the best player left on my board. And I do think Mobley is kind of a tick ahead on defense. Maybe it's just because Jaren is fouling and there's just consistency there. And I do think there are there's more, maybe, again, and maybe this is just, my anecdotal evidence and what I wrote in my notes. I just feel I remember more games where Jaren kind of takes a back seat and you just don't feel his impact as much as Mobley consistently. And I think you can argue again, like I said with Mobley, the Cavs play a lot of offensively slanted lineups around him and he has no real choice but to be everywhere on defense, or else the Cavs aren't going to be good on defense. But I do think Jaren, he's such a fascinating player, like the way that he's evolved throughout his career, from a high volume movement shooter to a bruising face up big. While I don't think he's maybe not the defender he was in 2022 or 2023. Still, I think a top 5 defender in the league pretty comfortably, top 5, 6. He's definitely up there for me.
And he struggled in that Thunder stage, but who wouldn't? Yeah, I was just saying, he struggled offensively in that Thunder series as the number one.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to penalize him for anything. Yeah.
But I still think you could look at Fenny versus the Northwestern men's basketball team. I don't know, man. I still think you got to look at Jaren's season as a whole and just be super happy with his offensive development. They completely redesigned the offense, not necessarily around him, but it definitely highlighted his strengths a lot more and allowed him to play in this sort of Giannis light style mold with more space on the floor. And you remember the game? I think it was in Boston, maybe mid or early to mid season. Jaren was just absolutely everywhere, unstoppable offensively and making crazy defensive plays. I think it was one of the best games of his career I had watched. And I think that's the most fascinating thing about him is yes, I would argue probably he has a higher peak value maybe than he's hit a higher peak at times than Mobley or Siakam, but just the consistency is always very up and down for him. And I think even the Grizzlies sort of trailing off towards the end of the season and their offense becoming less potent and how him and Ja sometimes fit together, makes me question him a little bit. But I think, and I would say him versus Mobley on defense, I think Mobley's definitely more consistent, but also slightly more versatile against guards and maybe more light on his feet. I think Mobley's defensive feel is definitely a rung above Jaren, while Jaren could probably play against more bruising big, slightly better. But
I wonder. I really hope we get a Jaren season that's just the best of all of the stuff he's been. He is the movement shooter that he was early in his career, and he's bruising and he's lighter on defense. I don't know if it's gonna happen. Is the thing with him. There are some of these players that are just maybe less than the sum of all of their peaks, but man, I mean, if you catch Jaren on the right day or even season, like he's unreal. And like I said, he was the best player left on my board for a reason.
His interior scoring like bag is so interesting because he never wants to spin or go to his right hand. He's always looking to get to that like lefty like push shot. Just so interesting. But like has great ball skills for a guy his size and like has really good touch around the rim. I feel like overall, I love his game.
Benny, who you got as your next pick?
I understand the concerns. I understand if he's undraftable for certain people. I'm taking Cat. I mean, I did like the offensive mismatch that guy is just like, second to none. Second on the team in plus minus in the playoffs last year. I thought at one point early in the season he turned a corner defensively as a center, and then he kind of went back to his old ways, and that was a fleeting moment. But yeah, purely just for like the stretch shooting and the attacking off the dribble, straight line stuff as a 5. Like he's top 20.
I still thought it was like a little insane when people were like, oh, like he's like in MVP conversations. I was like, well, just because I felt like similar to like a guy like Kawhi or something, like Cat was not really like he wasn't creating the shots that he was getting all the time. Like he was just like the most elite play finisher / just like he would get the ball in his spots and then like go to work or just like hit pick and pop threes and like straight line drive attack closeouts. But they sort of designed the Knicks like offensive system to set him up in those ways. He wasn't like creating tons of shots or gravity for other guys, I would say, but he was just like really like sort of hitting his marks in that way.
Towns is such a weird offensive player to me. Like I just don't think he has the wiring to like best apply all of his tools. Cause like when Cat can like face up and be a hub from the top of the floor or be in the mid post, he is a ridiculous passer. I mean, for my money, like, aside from Jokic, I'm trying to think of bigs who are like definitively better, like hub passers to cutters than Cat. Like I'm just not sure that there are guys who match his like velocity and creativity and anticipation at times. But then like you see in the Pacers series, he's only really in driving mode. The Pacers load up on his drive and he just can't do anything because he plays at one speed and he can't like slow down and read a defense on the move. So it's like even though he's like a phenomenal passing talent, I don't think that necessarily works best. And like I think he's another one who's like offensive evolution is interesting from like a super high volume movement shooter. And obviously part of that I think is like the team change, right? And just like the way that the Knicks have to use him. I think you can certainly argue that like they're also not optimal for Cat, though I think the roster construction probably serves Cat more than it serves Brunson. But I still don't think it's like a perfect situation. You can certainly poke holes in it. It is just the defense that's the big limiter for me. But I had Cat in this range as well, so I don't have any major.
He's also just like go ahead.
Just a lot more consistent in the playoffs this year. I mean, how many games was he under 20? Versus I feel like in the past with the Wolves, he'd have like a weird disappearing game or two. And it felt like mentality-wise, he unlocked something.
Definitely his best playoff run when you factor in. I think in 2022 he was efficient, but he didn't play. That was only like a one series postseason. But yeah, I think Cat, I mean, like we said, not an offensive centerpiece, but and like he provides some team building obstacles. I think you have to be intentional about his like process limitations, like just in terms of getting a guy who's like he will kind of another one of these like matchup check players where it's like, oh, you don't have a player big enough to guard Cat, you're just gonna lose.
Or like fast enough. Like I think that's the thing is like the things that are strengths for him on offense are similarly things that like maybe are weaknesses for him on defense. Like the fact that he's a tweener and has the speed to get around like less mobile 5s, or like he can just shoot it over smaller guys if they put a wing on him at times. Like that's also like he's like kind of like a little too, it's like weird, like where like he's like quicker with the ball in his hands, but then defensively he's like not mobile enough for like quicker 4s, nor
I just don't think he can move laterally or change direction.
No, yeah.
And like a bowling ball in a straight line, but like that doesn't really matter on defense.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think like with his passing, it's like like the highs are really high, but the lows are really low. Like he you know, he'll throw some behind the back nonsense to like the guy in the fourth row, but
He
then
has
he'll
some
also just,
LaMelo in him as a passer.
oh yeah, I love it. I mean, but like it's sort of. I think I'd like a little more consistency with him as a passer if you wanted him to be like a full-time sort of dribble handoff Hartenstein kind of hub.
Cat went from 6.7 potential assists per 100 possession in the regular season to 4.1 in the playoffs. He's seen a pretty consistent decline almost every year in the playoffs. So this would be something to like look more deeply into, like you know the real like sources of Cat's like passing issues against better teams. But I do think it just comes down to that like he's not that good at reading a defense, and he's not a very under control player, even though like his one speed is a really damn hard speed to stop.
Yeah, and I think like it's probably pretty complicated with the passing stuff because like, you know, if there's more physicality on cutters and like guys pressuring the ball more, the windows are just a lot tighter, and like he's gonna turn it over more or just like decide not to like force it.
Like Jokic, who's so good at countering that stuff that he can just like negate it.
100%, or like even, you know, just like Jokic is gonna like still find ways to fit it into insanely tight windows in the playoffs that other guys just won't even dare try, I think. Right. Whereas like Cat, like I don't know, he just doesn't really have the
maybe a little more,
the like variability to do that, I guess, or something.
Cool. Well, I am I think I'm gonna take a guy that we've already talked about a little bit in Chet Holmgren right here.
Nice.
Just another one of these, like, again, kind of similar vein to a Jaren, a Mobley, you know, these kind of offense 2 or 3s with defensive player of the year level impacts on that end. I mean, Mobley and these guys aren't going to win defensive player of the years as long as Wemby is qualifying, but like in any given season, I think Holmgren is the level of defender where he could very easily be the defensive player of the year or be, you know, widely considered the best defender in the world. Like there's very few players I've ever watched that are like more technically gifted rim protectors than Chet. And like he's had this ever since he was a high school player, but Chet's ability to like locate the ball and like move his body in midair to avoid fouls and, you know, not fall for pump fakes, it's crazy. Like his defense in the playoffs, like I feel like almost didn't get enough shine because of just how crazy loaded that team is on defense, where I do think it was kind of hard maybe or just harder to laser in on Chet's impact, but really just the way that changes how offenses can operate in terms of driving and scoring at the rim isn't something that I think is an accident by any means. And like, though I kind of gave like some of the pessimistic offensive stuff, like he's still a very promising offensive player who's like a plus spacer for a 7-footer who can drive. He's a solid passer, great finisher. He's just an awesome player. And again, another player who I think is, you know, obviously helps bad teams with his defense, but I think fits on good teams as well. And we've seen that obviously. We've already talked a little bit about Chet, so might as well, if no one else had any outstanding thoughts, we can go to Mike on the turn.
Oof, man, this is tough. There's a lot of guys. There's like a number of guys who could have an argument, but I'm gonna do the most controversial probably pick actually of the group. I'm gonna pick Jimmy Butler.
Wow, that is controversial.
I mean, there are definitely guys who are, you know, more consistent, and like it was a pretty small sample with Jimmy in Golden State, but I think the fact that he's a pretty consistent playoff ceiling raiser and like just like one of the most interesting players in the NBA in terms of like how unique his offensive game, his overall game is. Like I think he's another. I feel like the theme of guys I've picked like the last few times have been like sort of ceiling raisers more than floor raisers. And when Jimmy was on the court, like even with the minutes that like Steph was off when Jimmy came to the Warriors, they were like plus 13 in the minutes Jimmy was on the floor and Steph was off, which is just absolutely crazy. You didn't see them as dominant when they both played together, partly because I think like you want to pair Draymond with Curry, and you have to have some rim protection on the floor, and like having multiple non-spacers is just difficult. But I don't know. I just love the fact that he can. I was pretty confident that they would fit well together, and I think they had a pretty good shot to beat the Wolves had Curry not gotten hurt. To be honest,
I think that's fair. Yeah,
and the team was just the depth was just so thin, and like I mean, you lose Steph Curry, and that's kind of like the star or the sun that everything is orbiting around for them. So I don't think I think as Jimmy's gotten older, he doesn't have the same playoff floor raising that he did when he had those
I think
finals
he's much
runs
more
in Miami.
context dependent nowadays.
For sure.
And I think he landed in a really damn good one for him.
Yeah, and I think he's still one of the he's like probably one of the best like sort of little thing kings in the league in terms of just like orchestrating the offense, cutting, extra passing, short roll passing, playing like free safety, off ball defense overall, just like one of the most cerebral guys in the league. And so yeah, I think you could say like I'd rather have maybe like a Jaylen Brown or James Harden or something. I know maybe not Jaylen, but like some people would probably say like maybe like let's say take Harden or something. But I don't know. I think Jimmy still has that extra gear and can similarly synergize well with good teams to make them great, which is like something that I would index higher on if we're saying like top 30 guys. I think it's like if we were saying like top 30 regular season players, he would probably maybe not even make the list or something, but like playoff guys, I still think Jimmy is top 25.
Guys you trust with the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just like to settle the team kind of also like
fourth quarter, 5-point game. Right.
100%. Yeah.
He's in that Siakam category, which is why I like both of those picks for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not probably as high on Jimmy these days. Obviously, he was hurt in the playoffs, so it's just like that sucks. But you can clearly see his importance even when he's not a volume scorer. I just think without that volume scoring component in the playoffs, which I'm just not so sure of, especially on a team without Steph Curry and Draymond Green, which like certainly the Warriors have other obstacles. Like they don't have much other creation and ball handling to free Jimmy up. Like, and obviously I think Jimmy's best stuff on offense, like is off the ball, just like moving into space, sealing, cutting, close out attacks. He can't obviously create, like, I think he's one of the best of the best that I've ever seen at that. But yeah, he's great. I mean, he's Jimmy Butler. I have him in my, I had him around the fringes of my top 30, plus or minus a few. So it's not like a huge reach in my opinion. It's not like you took like, I don't know,
Julius Randle or something. Yeah.
Austin Reeves.
Well, the one thing I will say is like his scoring is not like that notable in the playoffs, but it was like 21 points per 75 on like +1, which is like not that bad and not like a huge drop off from his regular season numbers. But I think it's just like you're getting all the little things you get with him, you just don't get with a lot of these guys, especially someone like the like less good primary scoring options. Like if you're like say like Harden or Devin Booker or take your pick of like the lot, Banchero, whoever, like all the little things like I would rather take than, I would rather Jimmy have than them.
I get it. You got one more pick on this turn, Mike. Are we going to shock the world twice?
I think I'm going to take Harden.
Okay, so we're not shocking the world twice.
Yeah, I think Harden, still a pretty like stable regular season player. I think he had a pretty underrated regular season. There are definitely some playoff limitations there, but one of the best pick and roll ball handlers, one of the highest volume pick and roll ball handlers in the league. I thought his chemistry with Zubac was amazing. Definitely still got a little like Game 7 James Harden against the Nuggets, but overall I think it was like
he also got Game 6 James Harden though.
Yeah, and I think like the Clippers probably overperformed relative to what a lot of people thought their to their preseason expectations, and I think Harden was very stabilizing in that way. So I think he was probably like at it, like you could maybe say in a vacuum, like Zubac was their most valuable player or something, but Harden still like solid scoring, elite passer, great, like overall, just like good on-off metrics. Definitely his scoring went down in the playoffs, but I mean, it was like a small sample. There was only one 7-game series. And I don't know. I think Denver also probably dialed up their defense a little bit more. I think they definitely put a lot more attention on Harden, and similar to Kawhi, they were making the other guys try kind of beat them. And so, yeah, I think Harden is squarely in this range. I think you could, make an argument for other guys in this zone, but I just think like his floor raising is at a level that I would pick
I
him.
have like 6 guards in this tier right now.
Yeah.
6, and Harden is one of the better ones. I think he's just such a damn good table setting point guard who also can have these scoring outbursts. And while I think there is real like playoff dropping at the point, I think his playoffs were good enough to where like, maybe it's just silly to like keep drinking the Kool-Aid. But I'm like, I still do feel like unless he's just mentally cursed in these game 7s, like there are ways he can be impactful, and I have no issue. I mean, this is right around where I view him in the league, is like early 20s, late teens.
Did you guys pick the Clippers or Nuggets before the series?
I think I picked Denver. I hope so.
I picked Denver. Okay. I don't know. I think it was pretty close. But yeah, if you look at Harden's box scores from the playoff games, it was really interesting. I mean, like, I think his numbers overall are dragged down by just a few really bad performances, but like, 32 in game 1 on efficient scoring, like 18, 20, 15, 11. In games 5 and 7, he had 11 on 3 for 9 shooting, and then 7 points on 2 for 8. And like, those are the games that are like, where it's like sort of like the classic like Harden meme or whatever. But I don't know. I still think overall he's like squarely in this range. I don't think there would be an argument for him below like 28 or something like that. Really.
I agree.
Like,
I think his like range might be narrower, but he's just a good player that you want on your team. Like,
yeah,
he's gonna pretty much like guarantee you a level of offensive consistency when he's on the floor. And like, even with his defense, which I think was like not good last year, especially in the playoffs, but it wasn't like atrocious, I don't think, last year.
No,
Obviously, the Clippers have a really good defensive context, so that helps. But
yep.
If the Clippers had played the Wolves, who do you guys think would have won?
I think Clippers would have won that series.
Man, that's tough. Man.
Without thinking too hard about it.
I think
My
that'd
point
be
being, like, I think the Clippers, you could argue, were the 3rd best team in the West last year. They just got a shitty draw with Denver round 1.
Yeah, I think they would have played a bunch of teams close. I think they probably would have. Like, do you think they would have beaten the Lakers? I think it's just like very matchup dependent, because the Clippers actually played OKC really close during the regular season. But yeah, I think they definitely could have beaten the Wolves. I don't think that's. I think they would have matched them pretty well.
It is my pick right now, and I'm between 2 guys. I'm gonna lean the healthier one and take Devin Booker, who I think is still an awesome player, who has maybe been kind of lost in this shuffle because of the Suns. Like, he just isn't the level of like transcendent star to elevate and overcome that context, but very few guys are. Not even Durant really was in a lot of different ways. But Booker, I still think is like a secondary offensive star who's, I think, plenty capable on defense in the biggest moments to not be a complete liability. We've obviously seen him. He's one of the better like playoff performing guys that I feel like gets underrated. I mean, in that sweep against the Wolves, he was at 25 points per 75 on +9 true shooting. In 2023, he was at 29.7 on +11.5. Like, that is stupid. And I think Booker's just like smooth, versatile scoring, like really does translate well to the playoffs, because he doesn't need to like isolate and farm a set defense. Like, he can play within the flow of the offense. He can get shots in early offense, but like, he can run pick and rolls, and you can isolate him in the mid post and do all of that good stuff. I think Booker, while like not the level of primary playmaker that he might need to be like higher on this list, like I think he's such a good decision maker at this point in pick and rolls. Like he's so good at just like reading tagging defenders and not forcing plays where he shouldn't. And though I think that's sometimes goes like on worse teams like the Suns, that isn't necessarily always as valuable. But I think on better teams, that is still quite valuable. And Booker's a guy who I still feel really comfortable in this range. Like just one of the better offensive players in the league, flat out. And especially I think on good teams, like we have years of proof of concept of that in the playoffs. And I think it just makes sense. And I really hope we get a Suns team in the hopefully near future that's competent again. Because like Booker's just such a fun player to watch when he's on. I mean, he scored 70 in like his second year or whatever. Like, come on.
Yeah. I think one thing that's interesting is it seems like his like regular season defense has maybe dropped off a little, but that it doesn't really concern me a ton. Like me, I think if he were on a better team and like was in a playoff context, I think he could definitely dial it up a level. I think it's just
that Suns defensive context was like the most unserious thing ever. They were relying on 37-year-old Kevin Durant and two rookies to like tie their defense together
like
by
Nick Richards. Let's get Nick Richards in. Yeah.
By twine and thread. So yeah, I mean, I think I don't think Booker's declined athletically at all from his peak from like what he's been in the playoffs and been better on defense. So I think just someone who isn't, like a level of guard defender that really, really tanks you in the postseason and just in high leverage games while also being not an offensive primary, but he definitely has his games in the playoffs where he is that when his shot making is just on that level.
Nick Richards is like this, like the consultant you hire, like when he's like the guy that you hire when like the business is failing and he just tries to like move things around a little and sort of like massage the numbers, but doesn't actually do anything. Like
it's crazy.
I mean, he was like their starting center for a good chunk of the season. Like
I know it was a rough situation and it's going to be rough this year as well, but at least they have more young players.
Now they have two centers. They got two centers.
Yep. And at least the Wizards own their pick. How about that?
Oh that's fire. Benny, you have your last turn.
Yep. Was hoping Devin would fall here, even though I think he was objectively worse last year in a lot of ways than he has been in the past. Still a great player, still betting on him to bounce back. It's a good pick. Maybe I'm shocking the world with this pick. The guy I can never quit. I've compared him to like, your favorite drug in a frat basement. I'm taking Zion Williamson.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
I can't quit it. I can't get rid of it. I've tried getting help. Tried seeking assistance. Can't do it, man. Third in the NBA last year if he qualified in points per 75, points per 100. I still think the guy is a top 10 offensive player in the league when he's on the court. Talk about like advantage creation, talk about like pressure on the rim. I think he's an incredible passer. I don't even care that he hasn't tried to like develop as a shooter at all. Doesn't even need it. Like defensively, not great. We can work on that, but like he's a freak. I think his game does translate to winning. I think that may be a slight difference with like him and even a Cat in the past. Like the Pelicans, I just pulled up his PBP stats. Like they were minus 11.5 with him off the court, only minus 3 with him on the court, and that's a pretty,
that's good. Yeah.
Like he's impact. I don't know.
That's pretty consistent for when he's healthy. He's been around 5 to 8 on off swing, like especially on off. Like he
has raised his game in the playoffs. Like 2 years ago, he had that 40-point game in the play-in, right?
Well,
sure,
yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah. I mean, he's one that like I probably wouldn't have picked just because I don't trust him to like get better at the things I need him to as much as other players, as well as be healthy and available and normal. But in terms of like per minute production, signaling out, canceling out everything else, I think he's very easily like a top 20 guy.
I mean, when healthy, he's a top 5 driver in the league easily, if not top 2, probably behind Giannis, I would say. Like,
I mean, he's genuinely one of the all-time foul drawing, rim pressuring guy. He shot 14 free throws. He shot 13.5 free throw attempts per 100 possessions this year. That's ridiculous.
And I think he's definitely a better passer than like Giannis.
I've always liked him as a passer.
He's a phenomenal passer.
Just one day, man. Let's
I
get a
mean,
healthy Zion.
It's
That's all I
crazy.
want.
It's very like similar. His like statistical profile is kind of similar to Giannis in some ways, where it's like, although Giannis does try to shoot more, but like the fact that like Zion basically doesn't really shoot jumpers and like still is like 31 points per 75 on like +3
Insane.
relative true shooting is like crazy. Like also just like if you look up, just like pull up his drives on NBA.com or something and just like watch some of the like acrobatic like finishes, like his touch is ridiculous, like high glass, up and under, through contact, through multiple guys at the rim. Like he's, yeah,
I mean,
insane.
he's a guy who I think if you ever get a healthy condition season can push for MVP votes as
100%.
But like
And,
that's
like,
just
how
hard
many
to-
guys could you say like between like 15 and 20 on the list? Like maybe the only guy I would say is like probably Jaren. Like among the younger guys, I don't know. Like I don't think J-Dub. I would doubt he would have that. I don't know if there's any guys younger
I mean,
than that.
it's probably just none of them, honestly.
I mean, maybe Cade, but like I still think that is like, I don't know, a leap away. But
we've seen Zion be like a top 3, top 5 offensive player in the league for stretches, anyways. Like and I don't think New Orleans has been a good spot for him, like on or off the court. Like it's not like he's been in particularly ideal situations throughout his career. He's played with good players, don't get me wrong. Like he's had other stars, stars around him and good role players, but the coaching has been weird at times, and just the stench around that place, it's
right. Bigs that can't really stretch the floor, so that's not perfect for him. Guards that can't really play make.
And there is some kind of question to me about like how do you best optimally construct good playoff teams around him? But then on the other side, it's like he's so good on offense that you figure it out.
I'm not sure it was just picking Derek Queen, but yeah, we'll see about that. I mean, I don't think like really like anyone was watching the Pelicans this year, but like he was incredible during like stretch. I think he was actually close to like his like 2021 self in terms of like how he looked physically. I think he like was pretty bursty. Yeah. I don't think he had the same explosion, but like close to like the conditioning
I feel like
he
it was
had.
one of the better defensive stretches at times too this year, which is like a low bar because he just like never puts together consistent good defensive stretches. But like, and I
were just terrible as a team. Like,
he's carrying Brandon Boston and Antonio Reeves,
Carlo Matkovic or whatever,
Hey, Matkovic's got a little game.
Yeah,
let me put you on.
Let me tell you something about Jordan Hawkins. Yeah, no, okay.
All right, Fenny, who do you got at 25? Your next pick here. Fenny has a wild squad. I love it though.
This is now the stretch of the like. There's just so many guards, and it's just like dealer's choice. Like Russian roulette. Who do you want to take?
Yeah,
man. I'm taking Kyrie.
That was the one who I was alluding to earlier, who I leaned Booker because of health.
Including the ACL. Interesting.
I mean, he's going to be back by January, right? I think.
I don't know.
I hope. We don't really know.
It's fine because because like if you can get him back for the playoffs, assuming he's the guy he was last year, like I have no issues with this versus like a Hallie or a Tatum or whoever is like, it's cooked.
I mean, Achilles is also just more
intense,
but I think ACL injuries have changed, but I'm still like 33-year-old guard, somewhat reliant on athleticism. I would say, like, I don't know. It's just like a question for me. What'd you say?
He's also basically been 50, 40, 90 the last 2 years.
Kyrie's great.
Yeah.
I think he did such a good job, like adapting his game to Luka. He has a decade of experience playing next to heliocentric playmakers, but I think because of that, he's become so good at it. Like he's just not the level of on-ball scorer that like you'd want him to be given the aesthetics, and he probably never will be. He's not that level of passer on the ball for sure, but in terms of like, I feel like Kyrie is an underrated one of these like Kawhi Cat. It's like, you get him the ball at his spots and he's not going to miss. Obviously, he can create and get to his spots. Like, I think he and Anthony Davis are going to do wonderful things together in pick and rolls and having all the bigs to throw to. He's going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting though this year, more than in a long time. And I'm curious to see how that goes, but I have
Just
no qualms.
they're thin at guard. Like,
Yeah,
I don't trust D'Lo. I like Max Christie, but like Clay is probably fading a
Christie's
little
also a
bit.
wing too, as is
I
Clay,
guess.
really.
I mean, I'd rather Christie play more on the ball. I'm just talking like meaning like guys who can like handle. I think they're just like thin in that department. Like Brandon
Relative
Williams.
to their team,
Like who do they even have? Like so.
Also,
You usually other guards on the board, and it's just like, I mean, what have these guys ever really like proven in a winning situation compared to Kyrie? Right? I like these other guards.
It's really interesting to compare him to like Maxey. I think Maxey is kind of the most interesting of the crop. Even though I've always been a big Garland guy, I just don't think he's like
Jamal Murray.
Yeah, I probably would have taken. I probably would have taken Murray before Kyrie. Just because I don't know, like
you are his number one fan.
Similar like playoff riser though, but I just think Kyrie coming off an ACL. I just want to see it first, kind of,
Yeah. Fetty with 2 risky picks.
I love it.
World's
worst blunt rotation.
There are just so many guards, so many like flawed primaries, I guess. But I do think this is where I'm going to take Trae Young.
Okay. I like it.
Where I guess he's another like kind of injury guy where hopefully like another year removed from major knee surgery, like he can look quicker than he did at times this year. But just talk about, on the Mount Rushmore of modern era playmakers, and that has not changed. He's probably, aside from Luka, the best pick and roll player in the league. And hopefully the Hawks this year have a better defensive, and just general supporting cast to show him. Like, we saw what Trae Young can do with good players around him in 2021. And obviously, that team didn't win at all, but they made the conference finals. They beat they beat a good Philly team.
They're up 2-0.
Yeah, they were. That is true. They were. And I think while Trae is a guy who, like, you definitely need the right pieces around him. You need versatile wings. You need a good two-way big. If you have those pieces, I think you can do really good things with him. And I think the question for me, like I said, is just him getting back to that level of like consistent, efficient scoring. Like back at his peak, he was 28, 29 a game on significantly plus efficiency. Hasn't been there in a minute. I hope he can get back there, but I think even without it, like, he fits in this range just because of how incredible his playmaking is. He's always going to be a defensive liability, but I think he's kind of elevated from the level of so bad it's like untenable and you're just going to lose when he's on the floor. Like, he's still bad. He's always going to be bad, but it's not, I don't think it's destructive necessarily anymore. And I do think Trae has gotten better the last couple of years, like playing off the ball and being a more secondary guy, even though it's never going to be like that secondary. He's always going to be the primary on-ball guy. But I believe this year his on-ball rate was the lowest of his career, even if it's still like towards the highest in the league. Anyways, but you'll see him come off handoffs more in the corner and make plays there, or like lift up to the top of the key with someone else on the ball and then make a play out of a pick and roll from there. Like, it's never going to be like real Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, even like Kyrie off-ball work, but it's, I think, better to where like Trae is still never like, obviously I think you can argue it's just like hard to build teams around Trae with other great like ball dominant creators, but like we still haven't tried yet. Like we could give him one and see what happens. But yeah,
no, I think I like when they're if they're using him a little more off the ball or coming off handoffs in the corner, because his decision making is just so good still. Like, even if he's catching it, attacking a closeout, like he's gonna find a lob or hit. He's like always had just like such good touch in like the short mid range area. I think the Hawks are gonna be really good, honestly.
If they're healthy, they'll be good.
Guard depth is better. They get Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard, plus Jalen Johnson's back, plus Reese Shea is a year older, Porzingis, big depth. I think Okongwu is like primed for another step up too. I just think like they're loaded. I think Jalen Johnson is the guy I'm definitely most interested in watching. He could be around this zone maybe next year, honestly.
He was in my like fringe consideration.
Like sub all-star kind of like level. Yeah.
If somebody took him at 30, I wouldn't like totally think it was insane.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Fanny?
Trey was also right there for like clutch player of the year for me with Brunson. You know, like he had a lot of big shots last year. I mean, talk about a guy that's like never going to be afraid. I'm not going to say he's never not going to show up because he's had his fair share of, bad performances in big games. I think they played the Heat in the play-in, right? And he was pretty bad. I forget exactly. But yeah, I'll always sort of defend Trey.
All right, Mike, you got 2 picks now.
The first one is easy for me. The second one's could be just like a guy I like because it's my last pick. I'm taking Jamal Murray. I just think like it's really like based on his playoffs. I think you want to guess what his on-off is in the playoffs. Like just pure like what are they when he's like what's the swing when he's off the floor in the playoffs? Throw out a guess.
Just this year?
Yeah, just this year.
I'm going to say +9.
When he's on.
That's the swing.
On off, just like on off overall. Yeah,
that's the swing. I think it's +9.
Okay. What do you think, Fanny?
It's a good guess. I bet it's higher. I bet it's like 13.
So the net on when they're on the floor, is +2. The on-off swing is +47. So that's also just because, like, I guess I don't know, like they played him high minutes and like because they had their guard rotation was really bad, but like he's also like he was like arguably like he was like incredibly important to them this playoff run, and it's just like it's obviously like there's definitely like a lot of noise in there, but like I mean he's just consistent playoff riser. I think like OKC was maybe like the worst possible matchup for him because they have so many jitterbug kind of guards to throw at him, and like he doesn't have quite the same burst that he did earlier in his career. But even like not really, but I think he's still like an incredibly dynamic like scorer basically from everywhere on the court, and like the 3-man chemistry between him, Jokic, and Gordon is probably still like the most unguardable play in basketball. And I think he's gotten like he's understood how to like sort of fit like sort of like play out of the short roll or do like little things more within the context of the offense. I just think like his scoring numbers are sort of in the range of a lot of these guys, but I think like his playoff pedigree matters a lot. And yeah, I also think like his defense during the regular season can definitely be pretty leaky, but I think he's gotten to a place where he's not like a liability there in the playoffs and can guard up and like lock into his matchups and actually be pretty decent on that end. I remember a few years ago, like one of the early games against the Lakers, I think in 2023, I want to say, like LeBron was just hunting him like every play down the stretch or whatever. But I don't think that's like really like a consistent strategy you can go to, and he can guard up a little bit. Like he has good size for a guard, and yeah, I think he's like
trying that too in that.
What do you say?
The Clippers were trying to hunt him too.
Yeah, they were trying to hunt him too, but I think like Kawhi probably got away with it a decent amount, but I don't think like over the course of like 7 games, I don't think that's like a viable strategy. Like overall.
In the playoffs this year, Jokic on, Murray off, the Nuggets had an 81 offensive rating. Maybe we need to start a dialogue.
Jokic needs it, bro. That's what the streets are saying.
Jokic is a Jamal Murray merchant?
He's definitely not a Jalen Pickett merchant. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, you've already taken one Jalen. You've taken 4 straight J names, Mike. Are you going to finish it off with a 5th? I mean, I think there's at least 2 J names here who I think are.
You think I'm going to take Ma Durant? I don't know. I don't know. Oh man. I mean, I might just take like a fun one and probably go for reach for a guy who's not quite in the range, but I
think that supports the spirit of the exercise.
Man, this is tough. Oh man, There is another guard I'm interested in, but I just don't know if his peak is quite there. I'm just like I'm just kind of I think my issue is that I'm kind of bored by taking like a Sabonis or a Bam in this range, even though they're probably like in that zone. I think I might go with. I'm gonna take Maxey. I actually think
I can't believe you didn't take Garland.
Oh, I know. It's I
Top
don't
10
know.
anime betrayals. That's insane.
I was actually gonna go with Derek White, who is like one of the most fascinating players in this range because I think like clearly like he doesn't have like the scoring pop or necessarily like pick and roll game of like other guys. But if you really like honestly in the playoffs, like I would take Derek White over like most of like some of these guards probably. Like in terms of just like fitting into really, really high level teams, like he's not a guy you can hunt in any way. And also I think he can sort of like up his scoring. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna take Derek White. You know what? I made the case for him. Let's just do it. Also, one of the rare guards that like
Man, Twitter's gonna love your team.
Yeah. One of the rare guards that is like actually like a difference maker on defense in a unique way. Like I think like the shot blocking like overall just like very versatile, just very switchable. Like I think the like a lot of these guys like even Murray, Harden, like even if you were to take Trey, Kyrie, like a lot of these Mitchell, Brunson, Curry, these are all guys that are going to maybe be hunted in some capacity in the playoffs. And White, I mean, is just the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And even among like the defensive specialist guards, like a Caruso or I don't even know who else would be in that zone, like Dyson Daniels or something like that.
Like when he'll be like
Suggs. Yeah, let's say Suggs or something. Like Derek White has more, he definitely has a lot more offensive pop, and you know, he doesn't have like this super creative, interesting sort of in-between game or like sometimes driving game. But I think like he can score from many spots on the floor, and his 3-point shooting has just gotten to this ridiculous level where I think he's going to make every 3-pointer like in the playoffs. Like, so I think this is a pretty like playoff proof pick. Like, I think like he's probably definitely a lower like regular season value, but I don't think like it's insane to say like he's out. He's probably in like the 30 to 40 range realistically, but I think he could have a shout in the top 30.
Yeah, no, I'd probably have him around 40, but I think that's reasonable this high. Yeah. I mean, he is just like such a monster volume shooter that I think it makes up for some of his other like offensive limitations as a creator. But like, I'm always attached to like what he did in the playoffs early in his career with the Spurs, where like they didn't have guys, and they were just like, it's like, all right, Derek White, let's go do offense, and he did offense. And
I mean, even like his regular season numbers, like they were like 10.5 points better when he was on the floor, like, and like he's just like very like not a super high volume guy, but very efficient, just like all around solid. Doesn't take anything off the table. I think especially like you get to this zone and you don't need guys who are super ball dominant necessarily. If you're on like a good team. So having just like I was even considering like an OG or like an Aaron Gordon kind of in this zone. Like, I mean, obviously there are guys who can score much better, but I don't know. I'm just like role player pilled a little bit, you know.
There's a reason I want the Avs to trade for White.
Yeah,
I think Derek White, like,
that'd be cool.
I think that's the best team in the NBA with Derek White.
Definitely the best defense.
Yeah, it'd be right. And like the shooting,
I still don't think they're better than OKC, but
all right,
that's fair. That's fair.
But they're really
their offensive fit is a little too clunky for that. But they would be disgusting.
So I mean, that would be cool. Absolutely. God, I still haven't made my decision. There's like 5 players that I want to take, but I think I might honestly just be boring and take Sabonis because I do respect him more than I used to.
Boo. No,
yeah, there's a couple more fun routes I could have gone, but I do think Sabonis like got better the last year or two in meaningful ways that just have kind of been hidden by pretty piss poor roster and organization, shaky coaching. Like, I do think Sabonis deserves credit for what he's endured throughout this just system in general. But I mean, the things that everyone knows, like in the regular season, of course, incredible rebounder, interior scorer, just one of the most efficient offensive players in the league. And I think Sabonis this year, especially, like, he really took his game to another level when the Kings were just really kind of desperate and searching for like consistent offense. I mean, this year he was at 19.1 on relative 8 true shooting, 6 assists per game. He shot 41.7% from 3. Obviously, really small volume. 2.2 attempts per game. But I will say, this is his third straight low volume season above 37% from 3. So I think there's at least some proof of concept that is a part of his game worth betting on and expanding on. And I think his defense this year was also probably some of the best of his career. Doug Christie, I think, was a lot more willing to use him more like the Rockets use an offensive floor raiser. And I do think in a better situation, we could potentially see, because like he played the 4 next to Miles Turner for the beginning of his career. And then he played in Sacramento. And of course, we've seen him as the centerpiece of elite offenses. Like in the Kings were an electric offense in 2023 with Sabonis right at the heart of it. So again, not like a very sexy pick. Like, it's not so exciting or like, playoff super slanted. But I'm like, I think Sabonis is really good. And I think he's just like a cool player who's gotten better in a lot of ways. But
hot take.
I think
he's not even the next center in that division I would have taken.
Fuck, who plays in that division? Oh, I know you would have taken it. I'm not as high on that.
Who follows divisions? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, fair. I'm trying to think how to set that up.
He's the second California Eastern European center on my big board.
Who would you have taken?
I would have taken Zubac if I was gonna go.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah.
I'm kind of not Zubac pilled, but I do understand it.
And obviously I understand the Sabonis argument too, but like if we're going for the Mike De La Rosa playoff riser, scalability build, like the defense, I don't know. Yeah, you got it. Zubac was awesome. I think also
the guys that you have to have around Sabonis are much harder to like get, and he's just a harder guy to build around than Zubac, who at least gives you solid post work plus I think rim protection.
He can roll a little bit.
His floor is probably like, in terms of building a good team. I don't know. I just think Zubac's like on teams without real playmakers, just this is much more limited offensively.
Yeah.
In a way that Sabonis is like boosted by those guys, but also obviously benefits from them. But like, I don't think Zubac is crazy in this range, but
it's a philosophical debate.
I'm a bit lower on him than his impact metrics suggest, which like his impact metrics are insanity. And I think part of that is
Zubac
Zubac. Because the Clippers were backing him up with Drew Eubanks and Ben Simmons, but like, he was extremely good and impactful this year. But I do prefer Sabonis in a vacuum.
Fair.
That's fair.
All right, Fenny, finish us off. This is easily the longest video I've ever recorded. Thanks, guys.
I love it. Get those RPMs up. Let's go.
Yeah.
This is December. Real crush. Yeah, I knew neither of you guys were going to pick this guy, which is why I waited on him.
I would have bet my life. I would bet my life on this pick.
I'm taking Paolo.
Oh.
Yeah. Knew I was with the two guys that were never going to take him even like top 40. I don't even know where you guys have him.
I take him top 40.
He's below Nemhard on a redraft.
That's crazy, man.
I'll quickly make the case. Obviously, last year struggled with the injury, like mid-season, and then even when he came back, he wasn't good. Right, sort of weird team, I think, too, to have to come back and shoulder a big offensive load because they didn't really have a ton else offensively last year, and he was getting his feet wet, and like the Suggs injury and what's his name? Like Franz can't shoot. So like
Franz got hurt too. Yeah.
And then Franz got hurt too. And yet, like, once he found his rhythm, I like second or maybe the last third of the season, like I'll pull up his splits post All-Star break, 29, 8, and 5 on 58% true shooting, pretty much what league average, maybe slightly higher. I don't know what league average was last year.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, just about league average. Yeah, of course, he still settles too much for shitty jumpers, and he's kind of frustrating at times. But then I think the thing that pushes it over the edge for me is he's also risen in the playoffs both years so far, and I think he was pretty good in that Celtics series. I mean, when he was off the court, they were negative 42 net rating. You know what I mean? Like, I believe it was a little bit of a projection. I believe in the frame and the ball handling at that size. And yeah, I think at 30, this is good value.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, the last three seasons, this is 2,400 minutes. Paolo on, Franz off, minus 7.8. Franz on, Paolo off, plus 7. Both of them on plus 1.4. I don't know. I just think like
I hate calculator boys, man.
I mean, that's definitely like very reductive, and I think you're definitely right about the second half of the season and the Celtics series. Right. And Franz has his limitations clearly too. But I don't know. I'm just I worry that he's wired to be a number one option, and he's not like able to really do that on a good team. Nor has he shown the willingness to sort of do the little things that are required to like sort of downshift his role if he were in a different context. Like, could he do what Aaron Gordon did after he got traded to Denver? He hasn't shown me that he's like willing or able to do that.
Yeah. He's also like way better.
Yeah, he's better, but I don't think like Gordon to a lesser extent was like sort of a number one-ish or number two option on like a bad Magic or like not a very
I think
good
the better
team.
question is like, Tatum struggles to shoot in a certain playoff series. He still impacts the game in so many ways as a winning player with his size and frame. He can play the 5 and defensive. Like, can Paolo beat Tatum?
I think defensively, I think like I believe in that more. Even though I think Tatum is like a pretty like elite defender. I don't know. It's just like offensively, he just has so many warts for me. Like it looked like when you turn on an Orlando game, like some of those possessions, it looked like they were playing like a different sport to like the Cavs or something like during the regular
I think
season.
they had the least watchable offense in the league this year.
Oh,
but I really
easily.
don't think Paolo is like the main person I'd blame for that.
That's fair.
My Paolo thought is kind of like I think I lean toward more Mike's side as like what he is now, but I'm still feel fairly good about him becoming the kind of offensive number one at some point at his peak. Because I do think there's like a bunch of low-hanging fruit stuff to clean up when it comes to like his scoring process. He's never going to be like an incredible decision maker or like a high volume passer. He's a really talented passer, and I feel like there's so much low-hanging fruit in terms of just like applying his physicality, and like his decision making as a finisher is just like brutal. Like he'll try the most unnecessary stuff, and like it's hard for me to measure that because like it's hard to know how much you can improve that. Like you think you can fix it, but obviously players never really do. This is a funny stat that doesn't really matter. I might have told this to Mike, but Paolo led the playoffs this year in creation true shooting attempts. So just isolation pick and roll post up. Any guesses on what his relative true shooting was on those attempts? It was 22.9 per 100.
22.9 creation attempps.
Yes. So just pick and roll,
man.
isolation.
I feel like it's probably better than expected, but I guess like plus 2. I don't know.
Just
like
playoffs.
Plus
just
2,
playoffs.
let's say.
Sure. Yeah. Plus 4.
Minus 11.9.
Oh God.
Hell yeah.
Which is obviously, Paolo is kind of cooking from 3 in that series, I believe. Which is really, he shot 44.4% from 3. And hey, this is 2 straight playoffs of him smoking from 3. So maybe if he can just like be an elite 3-point shooter in the playoffs, like.
Well, hasn't he only played 2 series total?
That was, yeah.
But yeah, no, okay.
And
I
like
think maybe a better comp for like him if he were to be in a different team context and like sort of if he were to be like unleashed in a different role would be like maybe like a Blake Griffin
That's what I was
switching
gonna
teams
say.
or something
Yeah.
like that. I think like that's
Right.
probably a more apt comp where like I think the one thing I am confident that he can get better at and already is like good at is like just like he should be like among the highest foul drawers in the league.
Yeah.
And that should be like a very easy way to like buoy his efficiency. It's just like the pinch post sort of like playing out of a double. I think he's gotten better as a passer slightly, but I'm still like I'm not super confident in that as like the offensive system. You know?
I
Whereas
want to
like,
see him with like competent offensive coaching so bad. I think the Magic have the worst offensive coaching in the league.
I
Like,
think that like yeah, I think Zach
their
Lowe called
defensive
that out.
coaching is so good, but like their offense was painful to watch. It like lacked.
And
Obviously, like it's not like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't really matter if you play fast or slow. Like your time of possession historically has zero correlation with offensive success. But like what does matter is like the urgency and pace of your movement and your actions. Like I think they have I think there were some like okay offensive designs. Like there were some good ideas and sets in there. Like I like some of the Horns actions they ran. There was some good like invert ball screen stuff, but just like constantly like guys pointing at each other, having no idea where they're supposed to be, people running into each other, everyone like
12 seconds are dribbled off the clock before anything happens. Yeah.
Doing the screens at like walking pace. And it's just like, this is so bad. And I think Paolo is certainly part of that. I don't want to like totally excuse him from it. I think some of his habits can definitely like worsen that because he's not a super decisive player. And like he has more of a right to deliberate than basically anyone else on the team does. Like it's more understandable when he plays that way. But like, I do think Paolo, like if you want to argue for Paolo higher than this, you can just say that like, while it's certainly he's not helping, the offensive context is so bad. And I think Desmond Bane's going to be so beneficial for him this year. I'm really excited to see that kind of.
As a thought experiment, if they swap Paolo and Jaylen Brown, do the Magic get better?
I think
like
they
if
do.
you're gonna argue against Paolo,
I think they do.
Marginally, maybe, but like not in that.
I think they do because they would lean more into Franz as the primary, and I like that option with like Jaylen being more of a secondary guy in that way too.
I think it's like if you have to win a game today, probably, but like I don't know. It's
Franz offensively has definitely some warts, and
yeah, I have my issues with Franz on offense as well. I considered Franz for my last pick, but I do think he's
good.
Yeah.
No, he definitely does have warts. Like, but I think like Franz is a lot better at like he can play off the ball more too. I think his cutting is like pretty elite for his position. Able to play pick and roll more. I just think like Franz plus Paolo just like doesn't really. It hasn't really worked yet. It hasn't really worked yet. So it's hard for me to say like if Jaylen is more of like would defer and be like this more like play finisher type, then like I would probably bet on that.
And we have seen that from him, to be fair.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. If you said a different player, I'd probably have a more confident answer. But
how about
also
like
Jaylen?
Lauri Markkanen?
Also not really moving me. So maybe I'm taking Paolo here anyways. But yeah.
Or how about OG? OG?
Ooh.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a similar like positional guy kind of.
Do I also have Bane?
No, I'm saying team last year.
Okay, team last year. Team last year?
My point being like, Derek White. It's like
I probably would just I think Paolo does provide a level of like
ball handling and then
defensively slanted team, but like I don't know.
I think it'd be pretty similar, honestly, with a number of these guys. I don't know. I don't think it would be like much better or worse.
I mean, their offense hopefully wouldn't be worse. Like it's the
bar. And then the argument is if it's not that much worse, I would argue Paolo's like upside that we have seen at points last year warrants the pick.
Okay,
I can hear it. Yeah, like I said,
I'm swimming upstream right now. The two guys I love Paolo.
I feel like I'm more of I feel like I'm closer to the center here. Even
Yeah,
though
you liked him in the draft. You were a draft.
I have optimism for him long term, as I've said, but I just think a combination of like I don't think he's been dealt a good hand situationally. Like it's a good hand for him to produce and like look like a star in the box score, but I'm not sure it's the best situation for him to like develop into a championship level offensive guy. Though I think he's just so talented. Like he could get there, but I think it's going to be a steeper curve from him. And I really just hope the Magic can like win a playoff series this year. Because obviously, I mean, he hasn't been the reason I don't think that they're losing playoff series by, I don't think that's fair to say. But
I just think like people are just a little anchored to his draft stock still. And like, I don't know. I don't have like the like first team all NBA, second team all NBA, even level that I think he was projected to sort of be trending towards. I just like don't really see that, but I don't know. He's young. A lot could happen still.
Yeah, he is really young, and I think, like you said, I think I think there are multiple ways he can get there. The easiest way would just be like taking up a more heavy play finisher role, and
just like simplifying his shot selection and his decision making. I think would be good. Like if like
Bane
can hopefully take that off a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really hopeful for Bane. Even maybe a slight overpay in a vacuum, but I think
for sure
for what they needed, like it's just hard to really turn down. But damn, 245, that's crazy. This is
all right. Wait, I'm gonna extend it even further. I want you guys to give me 3 guys that would be like honorable mention / fun shouts for like maybe like top 30, like towards the like back half of the top 30, like on their day they could be in there.
All right, who do I got? Definitely want to mention Ja. I think like he's another one that's like the consistency, the team building problems. Like we've seen him be dominant in the playoffs at times. Like we've seen his just incredible paint pressure, intermediate scoring. I think his passing like arguably took another level this year. It's just hard because he can't stay healthy. And the Grizzlies were just such a shit show. And I don't think it's like all.
Nor can he really shoot either. I feel like his 3-point shooting hasn't really come back around.
No, I mean I don't think he's ever going to be a really dangerous shooter, but I think he's just such a potent driver, and like it's easy to imagine him having seasons where he's just up. I mean he's already had seasons of like near 30 points per 75 possessions on around league average or above true shooting with, I think, better passing now and better defense too. I think he's kind of also like on a Trae Young-ish defensive trajectory where early in his career it was just horrendous. And now it's like he has his moments. And obviously he has a higher ceiling than Trae because of his tools, but he's never going to, he is like a guy you hunt on defense in the playoffs, but I don't think it's horrible, but I didn't end up picking him over a guy like Trae for just the, I think Trae's a different level of passer.
That's fair.
Ja, I think Garland deserves a shout. Bane, I considered. Actually, the one guy I want to talk about is Tyler Hero.
That was gonna be one of mine.
Nice.
Yeah,
he was pretty efficient on solid volume this year, if I remember.
I'm kind of taking the Hero pill. Like I've been watching more of him. And
Hero pill.
Yeah, I mean. Hero was at 25 points per 75 on +3 relative true shooting 37.5% from 3. His first season of his career on plus true shooting, obviously the highest scoring volume. And he also had the best passing season of his career pretty clearly. 14.1 potential assists per 100, easily the best mark of his career. His pass turnover rate was the lowest of his career. He spent the most time on ball of his career except for 2022. But Hero, I just think has developed into the kind of offensive player that I think would fit really well on great teams, and the Heat have kind of left him behind as he's developed. Like he was legitimately awesome on offense this year. I think he legitimately, and I believe it more than a lot of like hot shooting season because of how much his approach changed. Like he really, cut out the long twos. He got to the rim more. He took more catch and shoot threes. He was, I think, making better decisions as a passer. Like he has some real like advanced live dribble stuff with both hands in his bag nowadays. He's not like a primary playmaker by any means really, but Hero was still at, 5.5 assists per game. That's up there with the top, 40 assisters in the league in terms of just a per game rate. And I mean, the reason I wouldn't have had Hero on this list is because his defense is still atrocious. And he will get hunted in the playoffs. But like Hero, as he was, I mean, he's way overextended on this Heat team as a primary offensive option. With, you know, I don't know how many solidly plus offensive players were on that Heat team. Like Duncan is one.
Like I think Bam's offense has kind of fallen off.
I don't think he was a positive on offense last year by any means.
He was
I think Davion in the playing game he was, but
yeah, Davion maybe.
Generally no. Haywood Highsmith no. It's like
no. Jovic, yeah.
It's a defensively slanted roster, and he really struggled as a creator in the Cavs series. But like, get him on a team where he's in like a more Bookery type role, because obviously that's what he's been at for most of his career. Then you add this kind of, you know, I think we see this from stars. Like Jaren Jackson had it in 2023. There's a year with like weird team building, a roster construction that forces a player to change their game, and it ends up having long-term benefits. And I think we can see that for Hero. It's just like the Heater in kind of like a weird spot, and I don't know. I just like don't have a lot of faith in their direction at this point. But in a vacuum, if you could like give me Hero in a better situation, he's someone who like I think is on the fringes. I mean, I don't have him in my top 30, but he's someone who I definitely would. You know, I think it's fun to think about potentially getting in that range, and especially like on his best night, Hero. I think for sure this last season looked like one of those just high level offensive guys. I mean, he had plenty of 30-point games. He had a couple 40-point games this year on plus efficiency, plenty of 10 plus assist games. Like he was just really good on offense.
I'll throw out
who you got?
I'll throw out Sengun and Denny.
Oh, I love the Denny shout. Damn. I mean, I could see him being an all-star, just straight up. Yeah. That's what I was telling Ben before. I could see him taking the lead. I would say another like sort of my type draft pick would be Aaron Gordon. I think just like amongst sort of like complementary players in the league, like I think he fits perfectly with Jokic, so you wouldn't probably see it as good in a different context. But like him and like Wemby would be like disgusting too, I think, or like somewhere where like you have like a stretch big maybe and like just need a little extra rim protection, or even like next to Sabonis, I think he'd be incredible. I love that shout. I don't know.
You raised me Aaron Gordon, I raise you Alex Caruso.
Yeah, per minute basis, I thought about it. Like Caruso is just like
Alex Caruso played 28 or more minutes in every game of the finals except for Game 6, and he was just as impactful on both ends. He's a guy, I don't know. He's just one of my guys where I'm like, I truly believe like if you juice his minutes up, he could somewhat replicate the impact. But again, another guy who I'm just like, I'm throwing his name out here.
Yeah, I mean, actually, honestly, you know, on his day, I think like LaMelo Ball could definitely be
easily
in this zone easily.
I think he's one that I'd be omitted because of health.
I would be fascinated to see him on a better team, because there's like, it reminds me of like this like sort of like thing in psychology where you have like these like critical development periods or whatever, like where if like they don't learn how to do something by a certain age, like it's going to be basically impossible for someone like to learn how to speak if they haven't spoken in like by the time they're like 8 or something. So like it's like if LaMelo doesn't learn how to like play serious basketball or like play defense and like actually like have to do like little things to win, it's sort of like Kuzma going to the Wizards and like sort of leaning into like these bad habits. Like there are guys who, when they get in the wrong situation, it sort of just like brings out their worst tendencies. Like even like Jordan Poole a little bit, although Poole was better this past year, I think. But
I think LaMelo is kind of closer on offense to being that guy. Defensively, I agree. It's just like his
offense was just straight up good. Like I think
off-ball offensive player that just never had a chance. I was actually watching some Hornets this week because I'm writing about them, and I probably might write about LaMelo.
He's a monster.
Like the way that the Hornets, I think Charles Lee is good. I liked the way that they did offense and defense for a lot of the time last year, even with just atrocious players all the time. But LaMelo is like really great at give and goes. I think he has a just preternatural feel for like space off the ball. Like you constantly see him just like lifting into space while someone else drives. That wasn't necessarily set up by a play. Maybe when he catches the ball, he's going to shoot a one-legged fadeaway in the corner. But like,
or like spin around, throw it into a gap, like whatever behind the back.
In terms of like feeling the space, and like obviously he's an amazing advantage creator on the ball. In terms of just like his best playmaking, he's, you know, I think you can argue him as like a top 3-4 playmaking guard in the league. Like it's absolutely absurd. The kind of vision and creativity, and his ball handling is up there with the best of, I think, anyone in the league. Like his ability to keep drives deep into the paint, I think it kind of makes up for like a lack of strength and vertical pop on drives. Because like even though LaMelo is never going to be like a crazy efficient finisher, he's been bad for pretty much all of his career. I think there's low-hanging fruit there with just how good he is like snaking around the paint. And I just think, like you kind of said, Mike, it really is like cleaning up the unserious stuff. Because like if LaMelo, if you're gnashing around the baseline and instead of taking a one-legged fadeaway floater,
Right.
you like just dribble to the middle of the floor and take a normal floater or like pass out.
Like play off 2 feet or put a guy in jail or just like
But I
sort of
do
just
think
like
we have
modulate
like
his tempo a little.
exactly. There is some like proof of concept. I mean, the LaMelo Brandon Miller offense in their 2 years together has been a above league average offense, and we saw LaMelo lead a what?
With Khan too.
That's going to be good. And we saw LaMelo lead a playoff level offense in 2021. That defense was just, inconsistent, and it was a play-in team, whatever. But like we've seen LaMelo elevate his game to at least like competent levels. Obviously, we're talking about championship teams here with this, and I fully agree with you that he's like the most fascinating case study to me of just like I would die to see him on like I don't know then like the Thunder or something. But that's
if he were on the Hawks, I think they'd be disgusting.
Ooh. Wow.
I think they'd be like really good, just in terms of like I think people sleep on Mo Gay.
I liked him. He's someone who impressed me this year with in like the limited stuff that he saw. Any other honorable mentions we should throw out before we hit 3 hours? I feel like we talked about Garland. We mentioned Maxey as someone in range.
Amen. Nice.
Yep. Absolutely. I think Draymond is still worth the mention.
Definitely Draymond.
Draymond is still a guy who you could reasonably have in this range. I think we briefly mentioned Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I think Markkanen, honestly, on a better team, could be close to there too.
Two more guys who I think people would have in there. De'Aaron Fox and Randall maybe.
I'll take over.
Yeah, their screens pinned probably
because I think like neither guys, and I think Reeves has a better feel for like extra passes, playing in between, sort of cutting.
Definitely a better role player than Levine while having star moments. He gave the Pacers Luka without AD this year.
Yep.
Right before we talked about ascend this year though. Maybe aren't ready enough to totally put in.
I think like playoff wise, he's like not that far from it. Like just another just like super versatile player. Like I don't know. Like I'm really curious to see how his regular season goes because he's just going to get way more usage, and I'm like fascinated to see like his shot, like his form and like energy transfer looks pretty good, but he's never really shot the 3-pointer really well. But like weirdly, he'll like have these moments where it just like he looks like an incredibly fluid like off the dribble shooter. So yeah, I'm fascinated by him. Also an awesome guard defender, very like flexible. One of the best Shea defenders in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not super high on his offense, honestly. Like
That's fair. Yeah.
it is just like the playoff shot making has been so godly, but and maybe he just has like the mandate from heaven. But like I just have a hard time really banking on that. I can see it. I can definitely see it with like higher usage this year. I'd probably take Neesmith, honestly.
Wow.
Just because I think his
top 30 player
over Nembhard in this discussion.
Okay.
To be clear, I might have him around. I might consider him around 50, but like he's just like the elite movement shooting and like perimeter defense. Such a rare combination to me. Like it's just a rare combo of skill. Like
Fetty looked at him like he just ate a raw egg or something. Like I looked up like guys with 4 years of service or less or something, and like there just aren't that many guys who I can see breaking out in like an on-ball kind of way. Like
Scotty Barnes. Like, I'm not the biggest Scotty guy, but if I'm gonna bet on something, take that kind of jump.
If this is just the year for like Fenny's guy Shaden Sharp.
I love the Scott. I would definitely say Scotty Barnes if we're counting him in that zone.
Right.
I think he's a very interesting player.
Another one that I have that's kind of more of a long shot that I don't really believe in, but think is interesting anyway. What if Jalen Duren is just like an offensive star next year?
I don't know.
Like, what if he's like this year? So this year, per 75, 16.4 points on plus 12.8 relative true shooting. He shot 70% on twos this year. I'm not saying this is going to be something he like does consistently, but like he was a monster on post-ups this year. Like he was a crazy efficient like face-up isolation scorer. I don't know. Not something I'd advocate for, but like, what if what if he just like has a season where he's at like 20? Maybe Cade goes down for a stretch. He has like 23 a game on plus efficiency, and it's just like,
you know who honestly I think could get there is Josh Giddey. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. I could see it. Like he's like if the shot really like comes around consistently, like he was pretty good for stretches of last year. I mean,
I need to go back and really watch the end of last season.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll take my chance with Quentin Grimes.
Ooh, I love that show. Yeah,
I think is. I understand it's like the second apron stuff. Like if I'm the Sixers, I'm just like, just pay the guy. He's just so good.
How about Tumani Kamara?
I think offense probably too little.
Tumani, not no offense. Scottie Pippen Jr. I could see him being pretty good.
If he was on like a team where he played 30 minutes a night, maybe.
Well, they don't have guards like that, so they lost Bane, so he's gonna play more. Filipowski. Well, he did dominate summer league, so that's a start.
Player, Mike, in 2027.
Well, I don't know. I haven't watched him enough, honestly. Like, is his defense like sort of? Can he hang
Flip is
enough?
not going to be a top 30 player. I fear.
Let a man believe.
I fear.
What about any of the Wizards guys? Sar?
Yeah, Fenny. What do you think? Sar, maybe.
We're talking like to be on this list by this time next year, or just
no. Like in a few years. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think Sar for sure.
Trey getting on there.
Yeah, I think it's Sar and Trey. Yeah. I'm actually lower on Bub than I think most people are, especially Wizards fans.
Wow.
What up,
yeah, I
so agree with you on Bub, but every time I tweet about anything about him, I think Wizards fans just like crucify me. I'm higher on Keyshawn than him.
I think Keyshawn might be our best young player. Like if I'm really being honest.
I don't know if I go that far, but I was pleasantly surprised by a lot of what he did this year.
He can pass. I mean, great wing defender. I think
he's ever going to be able to score really.
Fair. I like the jumper though. He didn't shoot it well, percentages wise, but
he's going to be a fine like off-ball shooter. Like I just
he got some feel pass. He talks a lot of shit too. If you watch Wizards games, which I kind of
like that. I wouldn't expect him to get into top 30.
I still have a nice little timeshare on Bilal Coulibaly Island.
Oh man, Ben. I don't know where you're at, but I'm starting to lose it a little bit.
I still have a little stock. I mean, he's just like so young still.
I know. Maybe I'm just trying to rush it, but
I'm curious to see him. He's playing Eurobasket, so I think that'll be an interesting test. Him and
Sar is too.
Yeah.
Sar is too. Sar was good in their first game. I think he had 12 in the first quarter or something. Saw some.
That's
Bilal is still only
That's the
20.
same amount of shots he missed in his first summer league game. That's crazy.
Dude, Bilal is still only 21, which is crazy.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
He's so young.
He's younger than Keyshawn, right?
Is he? Wow.
No, he's not. He's
They're the same. They're the
he's
same
not.
age. They're like the same age.
They're both 21, but Keyshawn's like 8 months younger.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's fair. When you put it that way, like Bilal's definitely better than Keyshawn right now. So that's fair.
Yeah, and right. So I think Bilal is up there. But
Yeah,
anyways,
Can I offer you Aaron Wiggins?
actually
on
get
a
him
different
team.
team?
Actually get him on a team that doesn't need to win, and I support it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna make the executive decision to end this off. We could go for hours.
Let's wrap this thing up.
I was gonna say if you couldn't tell that the three of us are friends in real life, that I don't know. But anyways, huge thank you to Mike and Fenny for their extremely generous time. I'll go for whatever.
Go watch this.